to escape pain or suffering. It is indeed a serious but preventable public health problem. According to the WHO, close to 8 lakh people die by suicide every year, which is one person every 40 seconds. For each suicide, there are more than 20 suicide attempts. Suicide is a global phenomena and the second leading cause of death amongst 15 to 29-year-olds. Across the world, mental health experts are dealing with an increasing number of people, particularly from the youth, showing suicidal tendencies triggered by the uncertainty brought about by COVID-19. On this World Suicide Prevention Day, we bring to you an international intercollegiate webinar to create an awareness about the increasing risks of suicide in the youth. We begin by extending our gratitude to the Hyderabad Singh National Collegiate Board and our principal in charge, Dr. Neha Jagtiani, who with utmost dedication encourages the Department of Psychology in all our ventures. No program is complete without our esteemed head of the psychology department, Dr. Meghna Basu Thakur. We thank her for her resolute determination and unwavering efforts in making this event come true, and for giving all of us an opportunity to learn and create awareness on suicide prevention in our youth. Having completed 21 years in our college, Meghna ma'am is an absolute beacon of light for all of us. Moving forward, I would now like to invite Dr. Meghna Basu Thakur to introduce our chief guest, Shri Deepak Kumar Mukaddam. Thank you.
Thank you, Arshia. Good afternoon once again to all of you. And amongst us, we have our eminent chief guest, Shri Deepak Mukaddam sir. Who does not know Dr. Professor Deepak Mukaddam sir? Whether it is NEP, which is the National Education Policies, whether it is Education Forum, we have heard him give his absolutely knowledgeable inputs. Sir is Sir has been appointed as the Chancellor nominee for the Management Council of the University of Mumbai and has been serving as the Director of Jana Kalyan Sarkari Bank Limited, the Maharashtra National Gas Limited, and the JB Steel Private Limited Company. He is a member of the Board of Governors, Indian Institute of Management, and is an ex-Senate member of the University of Mumbai for 10 years from 2000 to 2010. Sir has worked in University of Mumbai committees practically in every department, whether it was dealing with issues related to finance, administration, and examination. Sri Mukaddam sir was a member of the Exam Vigilance Committee, Telephone Controlling Committee, Advisory Committee, and Fact Finding Committee of University of Mumbai. He is also the founder of Academistan, and all of you have attended his programs, and we have seen the kind of knowledge sir has. Academistan is a web portal which has been launched by him with a very strong aim to bring India's top academicians and professors on a single platform. Associated with many educational forums, Sir has conducted virtual roundtable conferences during COVID-19 times, discussing not only the features of the National Education Policy 2020, along with several other expert panelists. No one could have put forward such an extremely knowledgeable panel that we heard at the beginning when the NEP policy was released. It has been an absolute honor for us to welcome you, sir. And once again, we are tremendously obliged. You could take out your time and spend some time with our students. The students are very anxious because of the number of changes that we are reading in the papers when it comes to university exams. There are students who have ATKT, and there's a whole perplexed situation. I know my students, and I know that they are resilient enough not to try suicide, but I'm sure this anxiety which is in them, the pressures on parents have led them to even think once that is committing suicide or trying suicide, is this a solution? So we could think of no one better with your experience, with your involvement with examination in University of Mumbai to hear your views. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for taking time out. Without further ado, I would like to hand over the dais to Sri Deepak Kumar Mukadam, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon to everyone present here. I would like to begin by thanking Dr. Meghna and her Psychology Department of National College for inviting me to this webinar. It is truly a great initiative. Suicide is a very relevant issue with the youth, and it is about time that we start educating students about it. There is a bright future ahead for each one of you, and suicide is not the answer to life's problems. It only removes the possibility of it getting better, especially due to the current pandemic. Many things, including education, have taken a backseat for a while. This can provoke anxiety and stress in students who have been feeling uncertain about their careers, especially those in their final year. As the Chancellor's nominee on the Management Council, University of Mumbai, I would like to reassure you all that as time is lapsing, we are developing newer methods to adapt to the new normal. We have had several conferences where we discuss the techniques that can be used in this new era of online learning and teaching. In the month of July, a webinar on new age tools for teaching online was organized by Academistan, a platform for teaching faculty serving in higher education institutions. It was mentioned that students will not be happy if they are passed without writing examinations, and that new technology can be used for conducting them. As we know, it has been 34 long years since India has made any major reforms in its education system. In July, I, along with my fellow panelists, unveiled the new education policy. The policy lays down comprehensive reforms that will have a positive impact on every student, right from the tiny tots going to play school to an ambitious master's graduate considering a PhD program. It proposes sweeping changes, including opening up of Indian higher education to foreign universities, the introduction of a 4-year multidisciplinary undergraduate programs with multiple exit options, dismantling of the UGC and All India Council for Technical Education, and several other additions. The government has set a target of 2040 to implement the entire policy. With so much change, things may seem overwhelming, but take one day at a time and be positive as life is full of opportunities. You are the future of our country, and you must realize that life is way normal, valuable than those temporary setbacks. Be it personal or professional difficulties, seek the help from your family, friends, or professionals. Things will get better. To conclude, I would like to share something inspirational. I recently came across a place your hand over your heart. Can you feel it? That is called purpose. You are alive for a reason. Don't ever give up. Without further ado, I would like Dr. Meghna to continue. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Deepak Mukadam, sir, for sharing your valuable time and insightful thoughts with us, sir. Your remarks on this topic and reassuring our students was especially timely considering how COVID-19 outbreak scenario has put so many students with this mental standstill in their progress. They are confused whether they want to drop out of college, of continue their education, or do they want to give their exams. Most students have had a lot of unresolved thoughts, not just exams but many other. And of course, I must say that all students today present here have received the much needed assurance that they were looking from no other person than a man of University of Mumbai, Deepak sir, right from you. So I can reach out to all our students and tell you that you have the assurance from Deepak Mukadam sir, that things will be in place. University of Mumbai is doing a great job. Thank you once again for making time today, sir, and gracing our event with your presence. I know how hard it has been for you to take out time from this busy schedule with the number of meetings that University of Mumbai is having. Thank you once again, sir. We're really obliged for having you here with us today.
Thank you, madam. All the best for your webinar.
Thank you so much, sir. Without wasting too much of time, I now hand over the dais to Nandish, who is another fresh student of our TY Psychology batch, and he's going to be introducing our first speaker for the day, an alumni of our department, Mr. Subin Matthews, one of my favorite students, today a very well-known figure in New Zealand. So over to you, Nandish.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would first like to begin by thanking everyone for being a part of this webinar. We have people from over 20 countries, 270 people have joined over this webinar as well as a YouTube, and we have several people more coming. So basically, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Subin Matthews, an alumni who completed his BA from our Department of Psychology, RE National College. He is here to talk to us about suicide risk assessment. This is a subject which we should all be deeply interested because it is a process of estimating the likelihood for a person to attempt or die by suicide. Mr. Subin completed his master's in psychology from Christ College in Bangalore. He has his postgraduate diploma in the practice of psychology and masters of applied psychology in behavior analysis from universities of Waikato. Mr. Matthews started off his career as a registered psychologist in New Zealand with the behavior assessment team at Community Living Limited in the year 2010. In 2013, he worked in therapeutic community environment in a medium security prison. He went on to work for the Offending Behavior Program in Corrections Victoria in 2015. Currently, he is working as a consultant psychologist and also subcontractor at the Corrections Victoria. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Subin Matthews. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Nandish. I hope I'm audible to everyone. And Meghna, for a favorite student, I am not sure if that was the case initially when I was when I was in your class, but I'm really pleased to know that. I think it's surely an honor for me to be here as an alumni and to be invited to an educational institution, which was the first steps towards your career as a psychologist as well. So it's at the same time, I think it's quite an humbling experience for me being here and talking on suicide prevention. I'm a practicing psychologist. Just for a bit of a correction, I'm currently in Australia, so I've moved to Australia 5 years ago. I've been practicing here now, and I think more than as a clinician, my experience and the relevance of this topic is much more personal because of the losses that I've had over the years with suicide, be it members of the family, extended family members, or friends, or people that I've known through my journey in life as well. Therefore, this topic is quite sensitive. And I believe that to the course of this webinar, and I think I want to put it as a disclaimer there, it could be possible because you have got 200 people there, there would be life experiences that you guys have or people that you've lost to because of suicide as well. So some of the discussions that might occur today might be quite sensitive or might open up certain wounds for certain people. And therefore I would ask you to seek some proper self-care for yourself and surround yourself with people that you would need if the case needs to be. The topic that I have for you guys today, now I wanted to make it more relevant for you, but at the same time, I think for some of you it might be a bit difficult, given that it is coming from a very clinical perspective. Because I know that my audience here is students who are interested in the field of psychology or in the last year of their bachelor's in psychology, and some of you would pursue pursue your careers to become future psychologists or allied health professionals or other mental health clinicians, or some of you might decide to go and do some other field. But regardless of this, I think it might be quite important. The information that is shared today through the course of this webinar will be quite relevant for you. And I'll try and make it as relevant as possible as well. I can tend to talk a bit too much, so I might lose of trying. It might be useful either yourself, Nandish, or maybe you could give me a time check so that I know that I could cover some of the things that I really want to discuss. That will be useful. So every 10 minutes, if I get a time check, that will be really handy. I'm just going to try and share my presentation slide here. Let me see if I can do that. Nandish, is my slide visible
Yes,
to
sir, we can
you?
view it. Yeah.
All right, guessing that it will be the same for others as well. I think the first and foremost, before even I talk about any form of a risk assessment, I really want to help the audience here to take a moment in terms of just creating a level of appreciation, rather, for a person who is actually suicidal, to understand of the world from their perspective. Um, Now, in my clinical practice, I often, and not only my clinical practice, even through research and what we know about people who are suicidal, there is a perception that they have, that their perception of being invisible, that perception might be that of a strong sense of hopelessness. It's a state of despair that they are in. Now, that could be because of several circumstances they are in. In that state that they are in that mental state that they are in, committing an act where they would be taking their own life might seem as the only way, or might seem very logical way of either escape or an attempt to solve the distress or the problem that they have, or a way out. And whilst it might not be logical to anyone else, even as clinicians or family or anyone else around them, this is a truly sometimes powerful and sometimes the only option that the people have. And I think as people who are around them, I think it is very important to appreciate that stance or appreciate that position that they have. Because if you do not have that empathetic approach or understanding, it will be quite difficult to respond to this person who is actually suicidal. I'll speak to it a bit more in terms of what that means. But because the discussion and the main discussion here is suicide risk assessment, I'll probably give you a bit of an understanding in terms of what is risk assessment in a mental health setting. So a risk assessment in the mental health setting is primarily looking at factors that might increase a person's risk for behaviors that would be potentially harmful for the person themselves or for the people around them. Now, this not necessarily is relates to suicidal behavior alone, but this could be related to homicidal behavior or any other general vulnerability that people might experience. So it is an assessment of those factors. Now, factors can be used. There are personal factors, social factors. Now, for some of you who might be aware or who might not be aware, now these factors tend to change. What we call, they might be quite dynamic. And especially, so there is, when it comes to suicide risk assessment or homicidal risk assessment, there would what we consider as some static and dynamic risk factors. Now, I wouldn't get into the details of it because I think probably if I was start to talk a bit more about it, I might lose the audience here. But what we are really wanting to understand when you look at suicidal behavior is what are some personal risk factors that might tell you that your client, that your friend, that your family member might be at a higher risk of committing suicide, and what is it that you might do when that is the situation that might be the case. Now, doing a risk assessment, now I do not know. See, it's been quite some time that I've been away from India, and so I really do not know in terms of practices or the protocols that is actually being followed there. But in the Western world, from a mental health perspective, there is very thorough mental health assessments that is actually done before the treatment of the clients presenting difficulties. And especially when it comes to suicide or homicidal behavior, there is a very strong emphasis on assessments that is done so as to inform your treatment options, or to inform in terms of your decision making, clinical decision making, as to what is it that you'll be doing to make sure that you are trying to save this person, you are trying to address the risk that this person is actually presenting with. So yeah, risk assessments therefore would be a very important aspect in terms of your treatment and in terms of your decision making in clinical settings. Therefore, that's the reason for risk assessments. Now, I'll talk a bit in terms of what are some of the key elements when it comes to doing suicidal risk assessment. Now, I know, again, the audience that I have here are not in a capacity probably to engage in any of that, and I would never ask you to do that as well. So please consider this talk as purely as some information that you would need to further develop your awareness, that you would need to further study as well. And whether when you go into your postgraduate degrees, when you try to become, when you are engaging in qualifications to become a psychologist or any other mental health clinician, that you take interest to further equip yourself in this particular area, because your clients will experience this phenomenon from time to time, and therefore in to look after them, to care for them, this will be something that you would read to be well versed with. So when it comes to understanding the risk of suicide, so first and foremost, this would be in a typical clinical setting where you are presented with a patient who would be experiencing some level of suicidal ideation, or would have experienced a suicidal attempt, and that is when they have presented to you. Now, what is important is this, you might see on the screen that I've put some points there. I'll go through each of those points in somewhat of a systematic manner and provide some sort of a clarification in terms of what you would need to, what sort of an information that you would need to gather for each of those points. So first and foremost, it says is distress and psychic pain. Important to understand that individuals who are experiencing suicide or suicidal ideation are experiencing high levels of distress. Therefore, it is quite important to understand what is the level or the nature of distress that this person is experiencing. Now, how do you assess that? Now, the distress can be different for different people. A person A might not be distressed by the same event and might have a different response to it as compared to person B. Now, as clinicians, as psychology students, what I would rather, we are always curious in terms of human behavior, how people respond. And it might be quite important in terms of how your family member or your client, your patient is actually, what's the level of distress that they are experiencing? And you would be able to notice that by their verbal, by their non-verbal behaviors. Some people experience who are distressed might actually engage in excessive amount of crying. There would be a lot of dysregulated behavior that they might indicate. Some people show extreme levels of possible hypervigilance, hyperventilation, psychosomatic symptoms, increased anxieties. So those would be indicative of the distress that the person is experiencing. The higher the distress, the higher the increase of suicidality. The higher the experience of psychic pain. When I say psychic pain, is the level of mental distress again, the higher the chances that the person is likely to engage in suicidal behavior. Secondly, second point is that of meaning and motivation. So what we mean by meaning and motivation is, every person, when they have a circumstance that they are in, they try to have a meaning about it. Now, for example, I'll give you some clinical examples of it that I would have experienced with my own patients. a person who is experiencing conflict in his relationship, within his intimate relationship, where his partner has decided not to respond to his phone calls or to his emails, he for a brief period of time, he would perceive that, and he might have the meaning to that situation that she no longer wants this relationship. She wants to abandon me, and there's not going to be any person who I would be in a relationship if she abandons me, and I would not be able to cope. Now, this person's perception might be purely because of some of his own experiences in life, his belief system, his personality, a lot of other factors as well that might be surrounding him. Now, this does not necessarily have to be the same meaning and purpose for a person B, who would just consider it, yes, she probably needs some time to herself. This is not a question of life and death. This is not a permanent abandonment of me, and this is something that I would be able to cope with. So the meaning of a circumstance, how the person views the circumstance or their predicament will be a deciding factor in terms of the risk of self-harm or suicidal behavior that the person engages in. Secondly, in terms of motivation, when we look at suicidal behavior, it is quite important to understand what's the motivation for this person. Why does this person want to engage in that suicidal behavior? Why does he want to take his own life? Does he see this as his way of exiting from a problem situation that he has? Does he see it as a problem solution? Does he see it as a way of taking revenge or retaliation? So there would be n number of functions in terms of that behavior. And it will be quite important to understand the function. Or sometimes it is purely a distress. It's a cry for help. It might be a pure cry because this person doesn't know how else to solve this problem. If understanding the motivation of that suicidal behavior is going to be informing you in terms of how can you support this person psychologically, emotionally, and socially as well when you engage in when the person engages in treatment with you. The next thing that we need to look at is what are some of the mental states that might actually indicate to you that the person is at a high risk of suicidality. Now, some of the mental states that we know is increases the risk is states when the person is actually feeling a high sense of shame, guilt, increased despair. Now, there is something called as existential despair now that a lot of individuals who are suicidal that experience from time to time. Now, when I say existential despair, it is despair that they have in terms of there is no reason, there's no purpose in terms of why they should be living. They are not able to see any of their responsibility, or they are not able to see in terms of the value that they previously had for living. And those value never remain. And so they think engaging in suicide will be much easier an option, a much more logical option as well. So assessing those risky mental states would also will be an important factor in your risk assessment that you do. The next point is that of a history of suicidal behavior. Now, what we know, what research tells us is if there is, if the number of attempts the person makes, if there has been prior attempts, then there is a good likelihood that this person is likely to repeat that behavior in a distressing situation on future occasion. Now, so when there is a history of suicidal behavior, it is quite important that we tend to look at, especially ask for certain questions, try to seek information actually in terms of on previous occasion when the person has attempted to harm himself or herself, what were the circumstances? What was some of the ways they tried to engage in that behavior? Also, an important factor for us to remember is is there a history, is there a family history of suicidal behaviors? Because that will indicate in terms of, because we know the there is some studies that indicates that there's some genetic predisposition as well, or just via exposure, that people might just see that as a way of coping, or which is rather a maladaptive coping as well. So history of suicidal behaviors is a strong predictor of future behavior as well. Sorry, I've missed that slide. Okay, so the next one that we also need to look at is any current suicidal thoughts. So if this is typically, again, if you have the patient coming into a clinical setting, most clinicians would generally check for any suicidal thoughts. Now, I have to say, suicide risk assessment is never a simple question of asking a client, are you suicidal? Um, as students of psychology, possibly at this stage, you're just learning to understand and how do you explore, how do you find the information that you need from your clients, from your patients. But eventually, when you become trained through your training process, you would find ways of asking questions to gain relevant and very important information that would allow you to work with your client. And understanding suicidal thought, there are a number of ways that you can understand the person's preoccupations with certain suicidal thoughts. But most important, what you really want to understand is what are some of those thoughts. Try to understand the content of those thoughts, especially if those thoughts are driven by feelings of guilt or other delusions that the person is having. Is there thoughts? There's a lot of people who have thoughts of reunification, especially thoughts of reunification if they have lost their loved one and thinking that they would be reunited with their loved one who's passed away, and those might be the thoughts as well. It might be important to understand when those thoughts begin, or how frequent those thoughts are, or even how persistent they are. An important factor to also understand is maybe even why the person has not acted upon those thoughts, because that might actually tell you some good protective factors as to how you could actually save this person as well. So increased suicidal thoughts, again, increases the risk of persons acting on that thought. And again, sometimes it is also important to consider, many of times suicide happens quite impulsively as well. So if the person has got a lot of a high preoccupation with suicidal thoughts, there's a good likelihood that he would succumb to those thoughts eventually. The next one, how am I going for time?
So you've got
You're good, Subin. You still have another 15 minutes to go.
Yes.
All right, that's great. That's great. So the next one, I think what we really need to understand is a presence of a suicide plan. Now, this is something that you guys will come across, may or may not come across often, but many a times there is a huge level of contemplation that people have suicidal ideation that they tend to go through. In my practice, have come across a number of clients who've made detailed planning in terms of the time, the date, and the method in which they would be carrying out their end of life act. And they might keep that very as an information that is very close to them, very hidden. At sometimes they discuss the plan, and it is quite important. I think it is quite important as clinicians to try and explore and have an understanding of what the plan might be, so that important steps might be taken, so that the person is not acting upon that plan. It's often happens that the persons, I think sometimes the plans are quite realistic, and so trying to decipher in terms of how realistic these plans might be, how often the person thinks about this plan. And I think a very important factor to remember is how is the person actually proceeding with these plans? Is there a progress that the person is actually saying with the plans that they have had? For example, if they have planned in terms of the method that they're going to be actually doing it, have they already considered buying the equipments or the drugs or anything else that is important to carry out that plan? So it will be quite important to know that. Again, with regards to the presence of a plan would indicate that the risk of suicidal being a success is going to be actually high. So which means the need for intervention, the need for supports would be higher. With regards to the next, the next one is lethal, how lethal or what is the intent? Now, even though there is a plan, the person might have a plan, suicidal intent is something that is very important to explore. A person who has a very strong intent would actually, I think the plans that they would be making would be quite stronger plans. For example, one of the things that we know, and in my experience of working with clients who, I have to say, whilst I'm saying this, I think it comes to me from clinical experience. Unfortunately, I also in the last 4 weeks have one of my own clients have succeeded in taking their own lives, unfortunately. And when I look back in terms of the intent that this person had and the plans this person had, there was very clear, concrete plans and intent as well. Because the way that they decided to actually carry out the act, they made sure that actually they had done their personal businesses, they had said their goodbyes, they had things sorted out that allows them to actually carry out that plan. And they had actually made sure also in the way they had actually done it that there was not a possibility of them being rescued. So that actually shows the intent. That actually shows how lethal they have decided the way that they will carry out. Unfortunately, despite the attempts by mental health services, we were unable to save this person, or and that happens regardless of your best efforts and best intentions, and regardless of all the services there. That's the nature. That's where of a person who experiences that suicidal ideation, that they just feel so compelled during those moments to take those actions. The next is access to means and knowledge. What it means about access to means and knowledge is in terms of, whilst one person might have the plan, they might have the intent. What is the access that they have in terms of to the lethal means by which they would be taking their life? And that is when family members or even clinicians or even other services will act or will need to act so as to safeguard this person so that they cannot actually carry on with those acts. So what I'm trying to say is in terms of access to weapons. Here in Australia or in a lot of Western worlds, what we have is when we know that there is a suicidal ideation, especially if you know that there is an intent as well, what we tend to do is we are required to report, especially if the person has access to weapons. Now, for example, there are people here who legally have gun licenses. So it might be important to let the relevant authorities know. Or depending on sometimes even the professions that they're in. For example, it could be the police officers. It could be people who have access to drugs. It could be medical professionals who will have access to lethal drugs that they might be able to use. So all those increases the risk factors as well. Also in terms of sometimes there is an effort that a lot of individuals who are at a higher suicidal risk tends to go about increasing increasing their knowledge in terms of what would you would see them engaging in behaviors of trying to surf and trying to find information as to what would be the best way that they could kill themselves or take their own lives. So if the person is engaging in those behaviors, that indicates that their risk factors are high. Um, the last or one of the other important areas to consider is the general coping or the capacity that the person has. Now that will, if it's a person who's got a very poor history of coping, when I'm saying coping, I'm talking about the lack of resilience, a history of emotional dysregulation, a history of prior behavior that might actually indicate that this is a maladaptive coping. Even the presence of a lack of supports, very, very minimal supports that the person has, or a social disconnection rather that the person might be experiencing, that might quite indicate in terms of the risk, or the higher the risk if the person does not have that good coping mechanisms. Just checking my screen. Is my screen still available? Is my PowerPoint still visible to you guys?
It's not visible to me. Asha, is it visible
No,
to
sir,
you?
no, sir. The PPT is not visible.
No, it's not.
Is it visible
Now
now?
it is. Yes.
Yes, yes.
All right. Okay. I thought as much it was not visible. Okay. I'm assuming that people are not following this, or if you're not following, I know that some of this, what I'm talking, might be difficult to comprehend for some. Now, yeah, but feel free to ask questions if anything was not clear to you guys. I'm happy to take questions and leave some time for that if time permits. Now, whilst we talk about risk factors or elements that you might consider when doing a suicide risk assessment, what is quite important as what we do as clinicians is also tend to look at what are the protective factors that actually would prevent this person in terms of not carrying out that act of suicide. So the more the protective factors, the lesser the chances that the person is actually going to engage in that act. Here are a list of protective factors that is there, which I think is, especially in communities like in India, I think there is much more, I think, of protective factors there because of sometimes how socially connected we are, because of our living arrangements sometimes, because there can be people around us as compared to in the Western world, where there is much more of an isolation that people experience. So some of the protective factors are surely a strong sense of social supports that you have. And even the presence of some resources that is there, opportunities and avenues to seek some mental health supports, that can be a protective factor. A good family cohesion, individuals and people who experience healthy attachments with their family members, and where they see their family members as supportive, that is surely a good protective factors. People who have a sense of a good peer affiliation, where they feel that they are a part of a group, they are a part of their friendship group, or they do not necessarily feel they are on the outside of groups, that is a good protective factor again. As in my previous slide, I was speaking about a better coping skills, a person who might have a good sense of resilience or other personal factors in terms of their own personality factors might indicate that might reduce the risk levels rather. Some positive values and belief systems. This is when possibly just one's value system that has been inculcated in them from the society in general, from their upbringing, or even their spiritual values, their spiritual belief systems might be a strong protective factor that will go against the behavior. But at the same time, I have to say sometimes religious and cultural beliefs can also be a strong factor in terms of why a person might be driven to engage in or might be experiencing crisis that might lead them to engage in suicide as well. Lastly, the ability to access help. This is quite an important factor as well in terms of a large number of times what we know in clinical settings when people are quite reluctant, and both even in the Western world as well, reluctant not because of the here, not necessarily because of the stigma. Yes, stigma is there even in the Western world, regardless. I have to say that. In India, I think there is way more. I do not have to say that about it. I think it is much known. I think it is coming down though. But people generally could, when they are experiencing this level of distress, they are quite reluctant to seek help. They sometimes are in a position where they feel that nothing can be of help. No one can help. But it is quite important to reach out. And if a person is able to do that, that means their risk of suicide can be slightly less compared to another one who would not be willing to engage in treatment or seek help. How am I doing for time?
So you've got about
Uh,
2 more minutes.
'I've got 2 more
2 more minutes.
minutes. Okay. So look, I think if it's only 2 more minutes, what I really want to do is in my last slide, what I've said is clinical management. But that is, I think, more relevant for you guys would be, rather than me talking from a clinical management, is how do you actually support a person who is actually suicidal? And as students of psychology, I think one of the most important thing, and one that I really want you to probably take from this presentation today is suicidal behavior is or suicidal ideation is a very normal thing. And it is quite important to normalize it because the society tends to suppress it. And and that is why there you do not necessarily see people openly talking about it. Now, I have to say this is especially because even a person as even before I became a psychologist, I saw suicidal behavior in my community, in my circles, quite regularly, but it was never discussed as openly as well. Therefore, as psychology students, what I would really encourage you to do is regard this as a normal behavior, because that would allow you the opportunity to discuss and talk. Now, one other thing that I think is where I very commonly see, and what research tells, what observation tells, what anecdotal and clinical practice tells us, is a tendency from people. So especially if you have a friend, if you have someone who is actually saying that I have got suicidal ideation, I'm having really bad thoughts, I'm having thoughts of strong sense of hopelessness, and that I want to take away my own life. You know, the thing that we see people do is just go on to jolly them up, tell them no, things will be fine, try to tell them all the positive things, and tell them all the reasons why they should not be doing it, try to point out all the achievements, their responsibilities, and just try to make good for them. Now, this is something that would be people are most commonly seen doing. And I would really encourage you and warn you from doing this, because this was what stops people from actually engaging and seeking help. Because what that does to that person who is totally in despair is actually shuts them down. So for what is quite important here is actually being there, is actually developing a very empathetic approach, trying to meet the person where they are at. What you really need to do is actually first listen, be heard, and only then they will be able to listen to your voice. Only then they'll be able to listen to what you have to say. So therefore, that very empathetic approach is quite important. Now, I know for family members or as friends, you just want to support and help your loved one who's actually going through that distress, and you probably panic and you are in distress as well. But I think what is most important is go know them, understand them, hear them out, stay with them, be still with them, and that would be the best that you would be doing to allow the person progress through as well. All right, I'll pass it on to you. I think probably I've then gone beyond my time. I'll pass it on back to you, Meghna and Navish.
Okay, thank you so much, Zubin. I think we are well within our time. There is a question forwarded to you, Zubin, from one of the participants. And her question is that, am I audible, Zubin? Am I
Yes, I'm very
audible?
much. Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Okay. We want to know uh, how do we exactly check for suicide thought presence? We don't want to sound or look nosy. What are the subtle ways to check it?
All right, I think that's a beautiful question, and it's an excellent question because I think I made the reference to it. It is not many a times what happens is when you ask the person if you have suicidal thoughts, they're quite alarmed. I think it is quite important to ask in terms of sometimes questions is, do you see meaning in life? What's the meaning that they see in life? Is there plans, is there aims that they have, is there certain goals that they have as to what they could still see that they could achieve? uh, it is also important to understand, in one of my slides I mentioned, how do they see their current circumstance? Do they actually see, is there a way out of their circumstance that they are there? Do they see coming to the end of it? And those might be the questions that you might actually ask and slowly try to gauge where their mindset or their mental status is before you actually go into having some clear discussions about the plans and intent. Because if you sometimes I think when people go about asking very clear cut questions about, do you have a plan, do you have an intent, the most likely answer you will get is no. But then the more you try to understand the person, more you try to understand the level of distress, the nature of the distress, you would allowing them to actually talk would actually just provide and pave the way to actually understanding if there is a thought that might be prevalent there. So yeah, it's not it's 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 not asking the direct questions, but asking a lot of indirect questions in terms of understanding the person's motivation and intent.
Thank you, Zubin. There's just one more question from the audience. Uh, if there is someone who's successful, rich, happy, can that person be suicidal?
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. I say a wow to this. I actually say a wow to this is because I have to say that I have personally known someone who's actually, and in the most recent times, who who has successfully, unfortunately, managed to take their life, who probably, and I have to say, if I have to, I've seen people who are quite affluent, um, but the level of affluence that this man has, he's probably made enough for probably 3 generations to live very lavishly in a Western world. But unfortunately, with the crisis that he experienced more recently, his whole world came shattering. And it is purely not the richness that saved him. It's not the money that actually saved him. And have to say, the nature of his distress by itself was financial as to why he ended his life.
Thank you, Zubin.
The nature of his distress was financial, though he had enough for 3 generations or more to live happily, to live lavishly, but he ended his life for the same reason.
Thank you, Zubin. I think that was a very, very lucid conversation. I don't see any more questions coming in from the audience. I think they really enjoyed your talk. And I think the whole concept of clinical management that you shared with us was really insightful. I'm going to hand over the dais now to Nandish.
Yes, ma'am. So thank you, Zubin sir. On behalf of all the students present here, I would like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us here today to provide some important assessment criteria for suicidal people, especially the 9 elements of comprehensive risk assessment. Those inputs were very warming. It helped us understand how we can actually comprehend for the people who are idealizing suicide. and also about the protective factors, your insights on it, and the clinical management, sir, how we can develop strategies to better understand how people are thinking about suicide or are planning to engage in similar behaviors. So thank you, sir. Again, I would like to stress upon the fact that we have over 270 people from several places like Mumbai, Muscat, Vellore, Rajasthan, Benares, and several other places. And without further ado, I would like to request my co-host and fellow classmate Mehak Watnani to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
I would also, on behalf of Department of Psychology, also extend my gratitude to Sumin Matthews. Thank you so much for taking time out and sharing your views and experiences on our topic. Thank you.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for the invite. I've really enjoyed the talk as well. Yes, if there is any further questions to in terms of what I have discussed as well, I'm happy to chat, and I'm sure you guys will have forums or for further as well, or for Meghna can leave those questions to me if anyone wants to ask them later on as well.
Sure, sure, sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. You need to unmute yourself, Mehak. You need to unmute yourself, Mehak.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Okay. Thank you, Nandish. I would like to call upon Mrs. Asira Chirmule, who is a postgraduate in clinical psychology. She has received an advanced training in rational, emotive, and cognitive behavior therapy in children and adolescents from the Albert Ellis Institute, New York. With the aim to sow seeds of RECBT as a preventive self-help tool, which is extensively used to upgrade the quality of life, she has launched ATHA, a Center for Psychotherapy and Training. She has also worked as an expert consultant at Sunshine Wellness Center in Vasai and Evolve Clinic in Mahim. Also as a trainer for Holistic Development course at SNDT College, Juhu. She has also been largely involved in conducting diverse workshops and training programs. She has also spread awareness campaigns on the prevention of Alzheimer's disorder and in the prevention of suicide. She currently works as a visiting faculty at Swami Vivekananda College, Mumbai University, as an expert consultant at Type A Thought, which is an online counseling platform. Ma'am, it is an honor to have you on board with us, and a hearty welcome to you on our behalf. We are eagerly waiting and excited to hear you give your inputs and bring to our knowledge the impact of cognitive behavioral therapy on suicidality. Over to you, Asira, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yes, Asira, I can hear you.
Thank you for such a warm welcome. Today, I hope you are able to
Asira, your
reference to whether I'm
voice is,
audible. It will be very.
yeah, this is better. I think this is better, Asira. Asira, you're not audible now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can, Asira. You're audible.
I'm
Asira, your voice
saying
is
quite
lagging.
so. Just give me a minute.
Sure, sure. Take your time.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, it is good. Good, Asira.
Are you?
We can hear you.
The
No,
behavior fidelity.
Asira, you're not audible. Asira, you're not audible. Asira, can we do one thing? We have a short video to show. Asha, are we prepared with the video?
Ma'am, we are.
Yes, I think we can show the video while ma'am still sets her, solves the network issue.
Sure.
Yeah, you can start airing the video.
Can you all see the screen?
Yes, we can. Yes.
I have my ups and downs, just like anybody else.
Maybe more than anybody else.
I like my solitude.
I don't want you checking on me all the time.
I see no purpose in living. I drink alcohol to the pain.
I keep staring at the ceiling, hoping I'd fall asleep.
Come back. The innumerable thoughts and feelings. I often think about the calmness my death would bring. Would probably make the pain stop.
The anger, the helplessness. I wish I could stop being such a burden.
I just want everything to stop. I wish I was dead.
But maybe I don't have to act upon these temporary feelings.
Today, I felt good after eating at the table with my entire family.
Today, I laughed a little.
Today, I called a friend who's been trying to reach out since weeks.
Today, I called a suicide helpline.
Today, I took the courage to open up to my mom.
Today, I got rid of my blade.
Today, I opened up about being an alcoholic.
Today, I decided to get back to therapy.
I feel better after sharing my thoughts. And so it does get better.
If you are thinking about taking away your life, it is important you tell someone you trust.
You can and will get the help you need. Call a friend.
Family. Or contact these numbers who are willing and available 24/7 for help.
In your battle with suicide and the immense courage you show every day,
I would like to say,
You are not alone, and I support you. I support you.
I support you. I support you.
I support you.
I support you.
I support you.
I support you.
I support you. I support you.
I support you.
I support you.
I have my ups and downs, just like anybody else, but I'll never hesitate to ask for help.
Life हो out of control, होठों को करके गोल, होठों को करके गोल, सीटी बजा के बोल। मुर्गी का जाने अंडे का क्या होगा, अरे लाइफ मिलेगी या तवे पे फ्राई होगा, कोई न जाने अपना फ्यूचर क्या होगा। होठ घुमा सीटी बजा के बोल भैया I अरे भैया
Asira, are we there?
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Yes, you. This is much better.
I hope now you can hear me because I
It's-
had to shift from my laptop to phone, but that's how it is. It's fine. Maybe some network issue there.
No problem. Thank you. We have time.
Yes. So great. And I'm really sorry for this network, issue. Sometimes, it's just so unpredictable. So it can create a problem. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, you're audible. Asira, you're
Great.
audible.
Great. So today's topic and emphasis, which I'm going to help you understand, and we are going to focus on it together, which is cognitive behavior therapy for suicidality. And remember something, the presentation is focused on prevention-based strategies. Suicidality is a very, very sensitive concern, and it has many elements to it. It needs to be addressed very comprehensively and collaboratively with the help of a psychiatrist and with the help of a psychotherapist. But what I'm going to try and help you understand is what is cognitive behavior therapy and what are some of the strategies that it has which can help to work as a preventive tool for suicidality. The entire focus, according to me, of cognitive behavior therapy is not only as a treatment model. Definitely it serves as a treatment model, yes, but it also serves as a preventive and management model. Prevention is definitely better than cure. We all know that. So it's very important that we talk about suicidality using CBT, cognitive behavior therapy oriented skills and strategies. And look at this. What if we build these preventive tools from adolescents, from adults, if we can present these preventive tools to everyone, and if we get them equipped with these prevention strategies, we will have a community which is sensitive to suicide prevention. And what more than this day, like the 10th September is World Suicide Prevention Day. The fact that we are talking about prevention means that we have to start early. We have to intervene early. We have to look at how to intervene, what kind of strategies we can use for our dear ones, and also how to professionally manage suicidality. If we look at India today, we understand something that every hour one student commits suicide in India. 28 suicides are reported every day. I'm talking about this latest report by National Crime Records. 10,159 students have died by suicide in 2018. Maharashtra had the highest number of suicides according to 2018 report. Next was by Madhya Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Suicide rates in India are highest in the age group of 15 to 29. Almost 40% of suicides are in this age group, 15 to 29. And one more report I would like to share with all of you. Suicide was the leading cause for over 3,000 non-coronavirus deaths reported in India this year. This was a study done by some researchers and they came up with this. So look at the urgency that with which we have to actually intervene, all mental health professionals. And we have to talk about prevention strategies here. Before I venture into my topic, CBT for suicidality with reference to prevention, I would like to highlight some important risk factors associated with suicidality. One of the prominent risk factors is related to psychopathology. Anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, personality disorders, psychosis. That's one of the most important risk factors. Other risk factor, a state of hopelessness, which is definitely related to depression, but it can also independently exist. Impulsivity, aggression, not being able to control your impulsivity and your aggressive behaviors. High situational stress. Today we look at this pandemic and we know it is such an important trigger for most of us. It's an adversity that we are struggling with. So situational stress is also something which is a very important risk factor. Then we talk about lack of emotional regulation skills. I don't remember in school, we had having these sessions on what are I hope you guys can hear me. So let me know, or through the chat, it will be helpful for me.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
can hear you.
Thank
We
you
can
so
hear you,
much.
ma'am.
There was
Yes,
someone
ma'am.
who just muted me right now, so I didn't know that's fine. So yes, so risk factors are very, very important here. I was talking about some of the risk factors. I was talking about in school back then, we actually had no idea about, what different types of emotions we experience, how to address them, how to monitor or regulate them. So lack of emotional regulation is a very, very critical risk factor. Another important risk factor is family conflicts, right? There's so many, conflicts in the family, and you don't know how to address them and how to resolve or manage them. That becomes another important risk factor. Most important, again, I'll highlight this risk factor is not knowing what are coping skills. Again and again, I'll try to reinforce this point about prevention. Prevention is what? Prevention is understanding that there are coping mechanisms, that you can start early, that you can intervene early, that you can build emotional distress management tools. And that's what CBT is for. So cognitive behavior therapy is a very research-oriented scientific system of addressing what? Of addressing your dysfunctional thinking patterns and disturbed emotions that we all experience. Yes, Rituji is saying something that, we do not focus much on emotional intelligence and understanding your emotions in school. That is so true. I would like to really agree with that point. And that's why I'm saying that we need to introduce these kind of strategies, CBD specific strategies from school. And there is so many things that we can do for it. Today, I'm going to give you some understanding of it. So I was telling you that CBT is a research-oriented scientific tool which addresses your dysfunctional thoughts and emotions. Secondly, it also talks about three things: prevention, management, and treatment. So at all three levels, you can apply cognitive behavior therapy. It was developed by Dr. Aaron Beck in the 1960s. And CBT also helps you to, to orient yourself or to equip yourself with the coping mechanisms which are very much needed as of today. 5 months before, we didn't really we didn't have an idea that we will have to face such a pandemic. We had no idea about it. But we can definitely equip ourselves with these emotional distress management tools and coping mechanisms. We can do that. And if we are able to give this to our society, to our community, to our schools, to our colleges, to teachers, to healthcare providers, look at a community then. Our community will transform, and it will be a very, very, a community focused on enhancing mental well-being. That's the goal that we all should aim for. I hope you guys agree with me today. And if you have any questions for me, you can post it on the chat. I'll try my best to look, or some volunteer can help me if I have to really, if I find it difficult through my phone to access the chat. But you can definitely communicate with me. I'll tell you some research, even with reference to suicidality and CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. CBT is known to be effective in addressing suicidal risk. Not only suicidal risk, but also suicidal cognitions and behaviors. CBT also helps to psychoeducate individuals about what are the different symptoms or what are the different signs, of expressing suicidality. And it definitely helps to reduce or manage. I think manage is a better word. It definitely helps to manage conditions like depression, anxiety. It has got a wide research, CBT specific tools for depression, anxiety, even for personality disorders. It has got its own set of tools, research tools. One important factor that I would like to highlight here is CBT has also done a lot of research with reference to what preventive strategies for adolescents, for suicides in adolescents and in youth we can create. So they came up with an amazing research looking at, that adolescent suicides are so common nowadays and what preventive strategies you can start using from school. So school-based interventions, college-based interventions, emotional education programs are very much needed today. And CBT also looks at equipping our, patients or clients with problem-solving skills. Because adolescents who are suicidal, they report greater difficulty in generating solutions to problems. They are not able to think of alternative thinking perspectives. They sometimes get stuck, or sometimes they're unable to look at the same situation through different perspectives or different viewpoints, right? So this is about how CBT and suicidality is actually a preventive collaboration, if we have to look at it that way. Now, what I'm going to highlight today is how we can imbibe or how we can try to understand CBT for suicidality with a focus on prevention. So I have created an acronym for all of you, which will help you to understand what are different factors that CBT considers when it comes to prevention for suicidality. Remember, today's focus is more about prevention, because in order to understand how to use CBT for treatment, I would need good amount of time with all of you. I would need a comprehensive training program. This is more like a webinar or a session. So I thought of addressing this discussion with reference to prevention. That makes more sense to me. So what is the tool that I'm going to give you? What's an acronym that I'm going to give you? The acronym is simple. The acronym is called as prevention. PREVENTION. These are the 10 factors. Prevention, this word has 10 alphabets. So I'm going to give you 10 important, factors that CBT takes into consideration as a preventive tool for suicidality. Let's look at the P, the first one. And a volunteer probably can put it in the chat when I'm saying each, alphabet, so that gets clear for all of our participants to understand and they can sync well with me.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So the P here is prepare yourself to reflect on your concerns. That's the first focus of CBT. It tells you to prepare yourself to reflect on what your concerns are. Many of the times I've seen so many clients, or even, when I have many webinars, most of the times we actually don't know or we lack knowledge about what's concerning me as of now. So CBT helps you. It starts with just let's try to acknowledge and get more aware about what are my important concerns as of now. Where do I need help? Generally, when a client comes for therapy sessions, we generally ask this to the client that, what are your expectations from therapy? What are your concerns today? It's very important, this first step. Only when we know that there is a concern, we will seek addressal. We will seek solution. So it's very important. Since, not just for adults I'm saying this, but even for younger people, even for adolescents, it's very important to think about, what are my concerns today? This self-knowledge, this self-awareness should not be devalued. It's a very, very critical component in fighting against adversities. So the P here is prepare yourself to reflect on your problems or concerns. Some examples of what could be certain problems. One, lack of belief in self. I do not believe that I have the capacity to face an adversity. Lack of confidence also you can call. So one of the concerns could be lack of confidence. One of the concerns could be, I don't know who am I? Lack of understanding self, lack of self-concept. Other concerns could be related to low self-esteem. It could be also related to, I'm really very impulsive. I have had clients telling me that I take impulsive decisions and I'm very impulsive. I really need to work on my impulsivity. I'm lacking interest nowadays. I'm achieving so many things, but I have no interest left. I really do not feel accomplished after, or I do not feel mastery after I've done something. Right? So the P here is prepare yourself to reflect upon your concerns and problems. To all of you who are listening to this session, I'm going to give you a glimpse. Actually, there are a lot of detailing within this also, but I thought I must give you a glimpse of what CBT actually addresses. The R, the next is R. What is R? R is readiness to seek treatment or help through a psychiatrist and psychotherapist. The R is readiness to seek help or treatment through a professional network of psychiatrists and psychotherapists. I'm making this very clear today because many of us, we have an idea that we should go to a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist only when there's something severe that's happening in my life. That is not true. Visiting a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist, sometimes it's not necessary always maybe to visit a psychiatrist, but with reference to both consulting a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, these are preventive, platforms. They offer prevention, they offer preventive tools again. So please understand this, that you need not visit a psychiatrist and psychotherapist only when there is a severe concern in your life. You can go to a psychotherapist to build life skills. CBT, if I have to simply put it, it also talks about what are certain important life skills that we all need in order to face adversities, in order to endure difficulties. So it's a life skill management tool too. Right? So readiness to seek help or treatment through a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. Why I made this point very clear is many of the times I've seen clients will seek help, when they will talk to support group or they will talk to their friends or family or relatives, but family, friends or your closest network, they're not always equipped with the skills to listen to your problems. Many of us, you must have seen, sometimes when we are listening to our, our dear person, we listen only to reply or advice. We are not actually engaging in just being present for them. Just listening without, keeping our biases into perspective. But a psychotherapist is trained to listen to you in a non-judgmental manner, to accept you the way you are. So it's very necessary, the second point. E, what is the next one? What is the next tool that I'm trying to give you? The E here is engage in identifying stressors or triggers. Engage in identifying what are your most common stressors or triggers. Now, first I will tell you what is a trigger. A trigger is any situation, any thought, any event, any image, any memory that is disturbing to you, that is a very unpleasant in nature. So we need to identify what are some common stressors and triggers that are prevalent in my life today. Like I see so many clients today coming, and the most pressing triggers are with reference to loss of a job, financial dependence on someone, or financial, insecurity, loss of a loved one, loss of a relationship, right? So these are some important triggers or stressors prevalent today. We need to have this kind of an approach and understand that we need to identify what triggers am I going through today. And not just identify them, but also share these triggers, sometimes with your family, friends, and with your close network. It becomes very important to sometimes share these triggers. But definitely, what is important here is what family members or friends must do is they should try to direct their loved one to a professional and not try to solve all their problems. Because sometimes, again, I'll highlight this, that they may not be equipped in understanding even the triggers and the stressors and how they matter to the client. Right? So definitely family and friends can provide a facilitative atmosphere, or they can facilitate conversation and acknowledge what they are going through. But with reference to helping, you need certain training in skills. And just to highlight this, that that how family and friends can support a loved one or a dear one who is going through difficult triggers or difficult stressors in life is listen just for the sake of listening and not for suggesting anything or advising. This tool looks very simple, but it's hard to practice, very hard to practice. So just listen to understand the inner world of the client and not to give solutions. Empathy is a very, very critical ingredient here. Second important tool that family friends can use is validation. Acknowledging the difficult emotions and not getting into agreeing or disagreeing with the emotions. Like not saying something like, I don't know why you're getting angry unnecessarily. This means that you have invalidated the emotional experience of anger. Validation means that you may not agree, but acknowledge. So I can just try to maybe understand the anger that you are experiencing today. Please tell me more about it. I'm there for you to listen to you. This is very important, right? So I mentioned 3 important factors. We started with the P, which is prepare yourself to reflect upon your problems or concerns. The R was readiness to seek treatment through a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. E is engage in understanding, your triggers or your stressor points. The V. Now this V is very important. This V talks about venture into knowing your emotions. This is the point that I was talking about initially. The V stands here for venture into knowing what emotions you are experiencing. And can I hear, or do you guys agree with me? Not many of us know which emotion we are experiencing when we are really stressed or when we are really disturbed. Right? So venture into knowing your emotions. Now, when I say knowing your emotions, why should we know our emotions? So I'll tell you why. We should know our emotions so that we can identify what's happening with us. Identification is very necessary, again, for addressing. And let me tell you, this simple point of a client being able to identify his or her own emotion gives them a lot of hope. And I was pretty amazed, like some clients, when we equip them with this skill, they feel so hopeful that, okay, I am able to understand what's happening with me. Because so many of our clients, they come have so much of confusion. They don't know what they are going through. And it can be so difficult, right? When you're all over the place. And if there is someone sorted for you, right, it makes so much sense for them. So when I say venture into knowing your emotions, why to know? So that they can identify. And this identification gives them mastery, a sense of mastery, a sense of hope. Suicidality is so related to hopelessness. But this identification itself can give them or induce hope. Hope for betterment, hope for recovery, hope for progress. Right? So this is very identification plays an important role. So emotions which are very connected to suicidality are depression, anxiety, guilt, anger, hurt, shame. So these emotions are very much associated with the concern of suicidality. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them might be associated. So it's very important to help our clients understand, what do I mean by depression? We use this word depression so many times, anxiety also so many times, but do we really know what it means? Do we really understand its essence? It is trying to say something to us. What does it say? This skill CBT gives you. How to label emotions? What are the themes of different emotions? When I say anxiety, what am I saying? Anxiety is not just fear about future. Anxiety is what? Anxiety is you think that you won't be able to handle the consequences of the failure. So it's not just about something bad happening, but after something bad happens, the resulting consequences, will I be able to handle those consequences or not? That is also a part of anxiety. So such detailed understanding of each emotion is presented. Are you guys with me? Am I making sense to all of you?
Yes.
Right. So if you have any questions, definitely you can post it in the chat. And I'm sure there might be so many professionals here who are listening to this talk and they would agree with me. Just this knowing emotion is such a comprehensive preventive tool if you go to think about it deeply. Just being aware of your emotions is so critical in creating, hope, in creating a coping strategy, right? So this was the V, that venture into knowing your emotions. And one important point that I missed in this was that also understanding the significance of negative emotions. Many of the clients who come, they somewhere have this idea that we should always feel positive. We should always have only positive emotions. That's not the point. Negative emotions are very much needed for your survival, for your growth, for your, and negative emotions help you challenge your own self. So do not run away from negative emotions like sadness, like concern, like irritation. These are needed. I was irritated when I was not able to connect maybe with my laptop, but this irritation helped me to quickly think about, what is another solution? Okay, let's get on the phone and try to do this. So these negative emotions are needed to problem solve, right? So this is also important. So we looked at P, we looked at R, we looked at E, we looked at V. Then the next again is E. Definitely I'll do a recap, don't worry. The next E is about engage in what? Engage in exploring your self-talk. Now, this is like the highlighting feature of CBT. Engage in exploring your self-talk. First, let us understand what is self-talk. Self-talk is, simple terms, what do you continuously talk? You know, what are some of the thoughts that you are saying to yourself all the time? It's like your internal dialogue that is going on. And definitely we talk to ourselves the most, but we do not pay attention to it. That's the problem here. Right? So your internal dialogue needs to be explored. Why? Because CBT says the way you feel, the way you think is largely determined by the way you, I think I missed, sorry, I'm getting confused in saying this. I'll just reframe. The way you think largely determines how you feel and act. So what you're thinking to yourself largely influences the actions that you engage in and what kind of emotions you feel. So if you're thinking negatively, I won't be able to do this, it is bound or it is natural that you will act in ways which will go in sync with that thought. So you will try to avoid maybe working on an assignment. So for example, if I'm trying to work on a particular assignment and my thought, my internal dialogue is, you won't be able to do it. You will fail. You will make many mistakes. People will not approve of this, project. These thoughts will influence me to keep avoiding working on the assignment. I will keep procrastinating it, or I will do it in a very, very, non-systematic form. I won't be able to give justice to that assignment. Right? So the way you think, what you keep saying to yourself is very important. Mostly what happens with all of us is we give a lot of attention to what other people think, what they think about us. What does she think about me? What is he thinking about me? But we do not pay attention to what I am thinking about my own self, because that is the change maker. That is the determinant factor in your life. And we need to get this very, concretely, that your own self-talk is creating your actions. Largely, they are creating and even maintaining your actions and your emotions. Right? So it's very important in CBT that we, when we work with clients, we try to engage in like an exploration about what internal dialogue this client has. And an internal dialogue which is very related to suicidality is dialogue of hopelessness. It's like we are wearing a black colored lens, black colored goggles, and we are looking the world, or we are looking at the world, and we are looking even at ourselves through that black colored glass. So hopelessness is an internal dialogue that is very important in suicidality. So what kind of negative thoughts or negative self-suicidality is to come out of my problems? I won't be able to find any solutions. My life has no meaning. I do not see any hope in this treatment. I have had clients even saying this, that I do not see any hope in treatment. So it's very important that we address this self-talk here. And I'm talking about negative self-talk. Right? So when we are handling this point of self-talk, we try to build awareness about first what self-talk is. Also, we help our clients notice their negative self-talk, and definitely then to work on this self-talk is very important. So the E here is engage in exploring your self-talk. Then after you explore your self-talk, what needs to be done? Okay, I'll get to that. But before I move to that point, I'll tell you two critical, negative thinking style which is prevalent or which is very related to suicidality. One of the very common negative self-talk that is seen is known as, many of our clients, sometimes they might underestimate their capacities to tough times. They underestimate their coping resources. They actually have coping resources, but they underestimate it. So they underestimate it by maybe saying that I can't bear this failure. I can't stand this failure anymore. I can't endure this pain. So a lot of underestimation is there. So we work on this underestimation. We help our clients to see whether they are really incompetent or they are seeing themselves that way. So this is one. Second important negative self-talk that might be seen is known as catastrophizing. Many of our clients, definitely they're going through rough times in life or tough times in life. But what do you mean by catastrophizing? In catastrophizing, we say that the current experience, maybe if I've lost a job, my losing job is not only bad, but it is the worst case scenario. So in catastrophizing, we evaluate the event not only as bad, but from the badness, we take it to the worst. It's like this is the end. Losing a job is the end. This is what sometimes many of the clients can get into, catastrophizing. So also we work on these negative thinking patterns. And this is the highlighting feature also of CBT. So engage in exploring your self-talk. After you do that, what is next? So the N stands for we need specific skills to examine our negative self-talk. So the N stands for needing skills. We need specific skills to examine our negative self-talk. And this might sound a bit difficult, but actually it's very easy. Just think about this. When I say examining your negative self-talk, I'm just saying start thinking about your own thinking. See, anyway, we are thinking beings. We think all the time or most of the time about some or the other thing, right? So it's very important to turn that thinking inwards and start thinking about your own thinking. This is a process which is known as metacognition. When we try to think about our own thinking, and let me tell you, this is a very critical ingredient of self-regulation and self-awareness. Individuals who are able to adapt to adversities, they have this skill. They think about their own thinking. But definitely, it needs to be it is very important to guide this thinking. Otherwise, it can go to rumination or overthinking. So that becomes very helpful. That's why I said psychotherapy or CBT will give you these skills. How to start thinking about your own thinking. What is the process that needs to be followed? Everything has a process in CBT. It's very systematic. And this thinking about your own thinking is very, very essential to fight adversities, to manage adversities, and to even build your self-concept. So, all the risk factors that I told you initially, like lack of self-regulation, lack of emotional regulation, if you get knowledge on this skill, how to think about your thinking, you will be able to, self-regulate. And that will be very important as a buffer. Right? So the N here was we need specific skills to examine our self-talk. And I have a question for all of you. Please reflect on this question and tell me. How many times in a day do we actually sit with ourselves and we think about our thinking, like properly think, not just ignore, but actually sit and think about our own thinking? Do we do this self-talk analysis? Try doing this from today. Just acknowledge what thoughts we keep telling to ourselves. So many of the times our thoughts are so negative and they are sometimes so unrealistic also. Right? I'm not saying you have to fight with them, but start acknowledging them. That acknowledgement itself is an important skill. So we talked about I'll do a quick recap. We talked about prepare yourself. P, I'm giving you an acronym which is prevention. The name of the acronym is prevention. The P is prepare yourself to reflect on your problems. The R is readiness to seek treatment through a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist. E is engage in identifying your triggers or stressors. V is venture into the knowledge into the knowledge of your emotions. The next E is engage in exploring your self-talk. The N is needing specific skills to examine your negative self-talk. The T, this T is very important. After you have got skills to assess or examine your own negative thoughts, you know what will happen? The outcome will be you will take charge of your life. So the T here is take charge of your life. But that can only happen after you work on your unhealthy self-talk. The T here is take charge of your life. But how do we take charge of our life? We take charge of our life by harmonizing our thought, feeling, and action. We have to harmonize this. We have to integrate these three. These three are very connected. They are very interdependent. Thoughts are dependent on your feelings. Feelings are also dependent on your actions, and they all are interdependent on each other. So we can take charge of our life by integrating or harmonizing thinking, feeling, and acting. How to do that? I already have given you some to do that. Briefly, I've given you an idea. One of this I already told you is to work on your own self-talk, is to be aware of your emotions. After you do that, some other skills that will come under take charge of your life are create goals for yourself. Have some weekly goals, some daily goals in life. This preparing a goal list is an amazing skill. Now, before going to the next day at night, create a goal list for yourself. It need not be a very, very dynamic or very comprehensive list. You can even have just 2 goals for tomorrow, but have a goal list. Prepare a goal list. And not just a daily goal list, but a weekly goal list, monthly goal list. It's very necessary. Another important, factor in taking charge of your life is develop reasons to live this life. There was a research done with reference to prevention of suicidality, and this point, that developing reasons to live life, this point is very critical. It's necessary to have more than one reason to live this life. It's very necessary to think about what are my reasons to live this life. Right? So in such a way, you can take charge of your life. Right? The next here is, we have completed the prevent. Now let's look at the I. The I here stands for involve. Involve your parents, your caregivers, your family, friends, or your support system in your recovery or well-being. Involve your parents, caregivers, your support system, your family, friends, your friends, sometimes even your teachers whom you admire. You can involve your support system in your recovery or in your wellness program. How do you involve them? By sharing with them, by expressing what's happening with you. And not only by sharing or expressing, but also even the family members and even this support system must take interest in the well-being of the client or of the person. They should not just advise or just come for the sessions or be inactive. They should try to contribute to the wellness program. How can they contribute? They can contribute by first giving time to each other. Family time is very necessary. I did discuss, right? One of the risk factors is family conflicts, which is associated with suicidality. It's very important that we make real time for each other. Real time. That we are together sitting and we are talking. Talking about what? About each other's emotions. Do we talk like this nowadays. How are you feeling? Do we say this to each other? I don't know. But we should try to do this more often. We have to touch each other's emotions. How are you feeling today? Are you coping up well? Are you coping well? Is there anything I can do to help you cope well? We should also try to not just say that I'm there for you, but also action-based strategies. What I can do for you today to help you feel better. Is there anything that I can do for you? Please tell me. And if they are not saying, maybe you can come up with something and offer it to them. That's known as giving real time to each other. So family time is very necessary. Create family goals. Goals need not be always just personal. Have some friendship goals, have some family goals. Family goals of maybe visiting some, going to a destination. If now it cannot happen, but family goal could also be maybe taking a course together, taking a family course together in something. Maybe teaching each other some skills, giving time like that, right? And most important here is listening to each other without judgment. Mindful listening, this is known as. Mindfully being there for each other. Not listening to get anxious. Not listening to feel guilty. Sometimes if someone shares to you, your close friend, if he comes and shares this with you, that I really don't feel heard. You don't have to be heard. I really don't feel heard. You don't have to be guilty about it, but try to understand what the other person is trying to say. So this mindful devices, listen to just empower them. That's the I. Involve your support system in the form of family, friends, teachers, your relatives, etc. Let's look at the O. The O stands for operating through a holistic vision of life or of events in general. Operating through a holistic vision of life or of events in general. Now, what do you mean by holistic vision? Holistic vision means understanding that you are not the only factor that's contributing to your issues. There could be another factors which are contributing. Definitely, they may not be in your control. So definitely we should try to take responsibility for our concerns. But understanding that there are so many limitations that even you have. Understanding limitations is very important when it comes to holistic vision. Sometimes we do everything maybe for the other person, but yet we need to understand this, that there are some serious limitations that are there and I have to operate from these limitations. So operating through a holistic vision of life is very important. And when I say holistic vision, I will also highlight another aspect here, which is that life is just not about career, or life is just not about a relationship, or life is just not about a job or maybe a dream project. Do not make your life specific to something, one component. Understand that life is a series of things. It is an accumulation of so many things: career, family, your culture, your society, your self-work, your abilities, your friendships, your relationships, your marriage. Everything together makes your life. This is known as holistically looking at life. So even if you, for example, fail in your career today, if I do fail in my career, if I'm not really doing great in my career today, but if I have this kind of a holistic vision that my life is not just my career, definitely it's important part, I will work on my career. But if I acknowledge this, that my life is just not about my career, I will be able to see my failure realistically. I will be able to realistically evaluate failure, rejection, loss. It's very important, this point. So operating through a holistic vision of life is very important. And the last point, which is the N, that is navigating through problem solving skills. I told you this, that one of the risk factors is many adolescents that do not have problem solving skills with them. That's why I try to put this point here, and CBT works at, building these skills or strengthening these skills called as problem solving skills. So navigating, redirecting through what? Through problem solving skills. Now, what do I mean by problem solving skills? Firstly, at each stage of life, why it is big steps that you can take to do problem solving. This must happen from school. This is very, very necessary to start from school, all these preventive strategies here. So first is we need to understand what is problem solving. It is generating different solutions to the same problem, acknowledging different perspectives about the same problem, and building a synthesis and trying to come to some middle ground. So in problem solving, many a times we talk about what I can offer from my side, which will help to solve this problem. What other parties involved can offer from their side to solve this problem. What would be the limitations to solve this problem from my side and from other parties involved? Am I accepting these limitations or not? Am I being flexible about these limitations or not? And also, am I looking at winning or am I looking at solving problems? We don't have to win over the other person, like use my strategy. I think that's more intelligent. Not like this, but looking at solving a problem through valid, helpful means. So 3 things in problem solving we talk about. Strategy formulation. What are the different strategies? Acknowledging limitations and being flexible means respecting conflicting opinions. You may not agree, but you can still respect a conflicting opinion without agreement on it. Right? So this is the last point which I was talking about. N, navigating through problem solving skills. So I've tried my best to put it across to all of you. CBT with reference to suicidality with a focus on prevention using this acronym prevention, where I've given you 10 strategies or 10 factors that CBT takes into consideration to create a preventive tool to manage a sensitive concern like suicidality. If you have any questions for me, if you have any feedback for me, if you have any inputs, you can definitely share it with me right now on the chat. If there is any time to take questions, I will definitely love to address your questions. I definitely enjoyed this conversation with all of you. I hope you guys have enjoyed this acronym with the, little internet difficulty that we had at the start.
Thank you, Asira. I think students and teachers are already applauding the acronym suggested by you. So there is a question that is coming is, how far is self-talk normal?
How? Sorry, ma'am. Can you tell me?
How far is self-talk normal?
See, one thing we need to clearly understand here is self-talk is not about normal or abnormal. These two categories actually do not exist. Self-talk can be categorized as helpful or unhelpful. So when you're looking at your self-talk, try to see whether your self-talk is helpful. How to understand this? You will be able to understand this if your actions are productive. I told you, right, that thoughts influence feelings and actions. So if your self-talk is helpful, even your action is going to be very productive and constructive. But if your self-talk is unhelpful, your action will be, goal blocking or will be destructive.
Okay.
Okay. And definitely there is more to what is self-talk, but we do not have so much time to talk about, how to manage self-talk, etc. There is a lot more to even understanding self-talk in detail. I've just given you like a glimpse today, if that makes sense.
Okay, Asira, there's another question on YouTube which is asking that how does one identify, what is this person written? How does one identify stressors?
Stressors.
And how is it different from daily hassles?
Right. See, again, daily hassles can be simply called as stressors, simply. But stressors are those events which trigger a lot of unhealthy emotions within you. Unhealthy, disturbed emotions, okay? Not the healthy emotions. So what are these unhealthy, disturbed emotions? Like, for example, anger. So a stressor can be the same here. Like, for example, internet issue we had, like connectivity issue from my side. Now, this stressor, if it triggered anger within me, then it needs to be addressed. So how to identify stressors is they are similar to daily hassles, or daily hassles also can be called as stressors, but it is all about, can you manage them or not? Do you have the skills to manage these daily hassles or not? Generally, these daily hassles we can manage. If we cannot manage, then definitely we need to get some skills about it. I've seen so many of participants coming for webinars, and sometimes they really don't know how to manage daily hassles. They will easily get very angry or very guilt ridden. So sometimes it's necessary. Some people may not have the skills to manage even the daily hassles. So daily hassles are part of stressors itself. How to identify them? One more strategy which you can use is try to understand what triggers disturbed emotions within you. So ask yourself, right now I'm getting very, very irritable and angry. Which situation is triggering it? Oh, he didn't reply to my message. Now I get it. Okay, my teacher did not share this, my mark list with me. She shared it on the group. Just example. So try to get into an inquiry like this. I hope I've answered your question.
Great. I think there are no more questions coming in, Asira. So I think students have really enjoyed your session. So it's over to you, Mehak. Thank you, Asira. Thank you for taking time out. Over to you, Mehak.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Asira, ma'am, for sharing your valuable knowledge on what CBT can help with suicidality. You mentioned the risk factors, and one of them was emotional regulation, which I think was very important. And we all should understand that emotional regulation should be taught from at a school level, and also valuing negative emotions, which a lot of us don't do, and think that having positive emotions is the only healthy way to go about. So thank you for telling us that. Also, families feeling helpless when their loved ones are facing distress, and them understanding that they should direct their loved ones to a therapist or a psychiatrist, which is extremely important. So indeed, your preventive tools for suicidality were very, very valuable. And I'm sure a lot of us must be reflecting on our thoughts while you were talking about it. Also, self-talk is very, very important, as you mentioned. And thinking about thinking in a healthy way is something which we all should understand. Also, ma'am, you mentioned about everybody creating their goals. So understanding that we have limitations, but creating achievable goals and simple goals can be helpful and can help us be satisfied with our actions, which we have acted upon after thinking. And also understanding that we shouldn't make everything specific to one particular component of our life, be it our career, our any other event that we're doing. It's really important to go beyond that distress and understand that there are other things as well. So thank you, ma'am, so much.
That's a great summary. Yes.
Sorry, ma'am, please.
I was saying that's a great summarization, Mehak. That's a great summarization from you. I think you are doing a fabulous job. And I take this opportunity to thank Meghna ma'am and the entire volunteers team. I think it takes hell amount of time and energy to build such programs. And Meghna ma'am has always served that kind of an inspiration for all of us and her team. So thank you so
Asira.
much.
You always amaze me with the way you make difficult things so simple. When we teach CBT, there are so many things, but I think so simplistically you've given the acronym and with so many examples, when you explain such a tough concept and of course direct the examples to suicide and suicidality, I think it was done very well. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am.
I think all of us know that with online small hitches here and there, we kind of got used to. So we're absolutely bang on time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, Lasira, and being with us.
Right.
Yes,
And ma'am,
thank
if anyone
yes.
if anyone wants to connect with me or ask further questions, they can direct questions to Meghna ma'am and she can help with that.
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asira. So over to you, Kashish Mishra. We have our next speaker on board. So I will let you take the dais, Kashish.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Aparna Joshi is currently working as an assistant professor and is a center chairperson at the School of Human Ecology, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. She has been involved in designing and teaching courses for postgraduate students of applied psychology, clinical and counseling specialization at the School of Human Ecology since 2010. Dr. Joshi teaches courses on counseling adults, couples, and families, theoretical and therapeutic approaches to counseling, personal and interpersonal development of the counselor, ethics in counseling, and community mental health. She has been practicing as a psychotherapist for the past 19 years, and over the years, she has also worked with non governmental organizations and has actively been involved in envisioning and implementing mental health service programs in clinical, community, and institutional settings. She is also the project director of iCall and Sukunat TIS. Today, she will be shedding light on iCall and how it helps those in need of help. We are delighted to have you on board with us, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Kashish. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, Aparna ma'am. It's always a pleasure to have you. I think in my life, I would never miss a chance to listen to any webinar, seminars conducted by you. Aparna ma'am is probably one of the most busiest speakers around that I know, and especially with 10th September being the World Suicide Prevention Day, I was very apprehensive. I know how busy you would have been with number of webinars, but thank you so much. We are really obliged that you could take time out. And ma'am, I would like to tell you that, this is a new batch of TY students and they haven't met you before. But when I was discussing this, one of my ex-student who's still not become ex, and she's heard you through the Psychomagicum, and she said, ma'am, I need the opportunity to thank Aparna ma'am, and she's here, so midst of all the exams, my ex-student, every batch, and of course me, we look forward to your seminars. Thank you so much for taking time out, and the dice is all yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Meghna, I think for your kind words, and I'm always delighted to come to your group. And I think these are very inspiring bunch of students, and I love to be here. So thanks a lot. May I request the coordinators to give me access so that I can share my presentation? Would it be possible?
Yes,
So that I can share my screen?
Asha, can you please allow ma'am to share her screen?
Yes, ma'am. Just a second.
You'll have to make me the co-host.
Yes.
Ma'am, I've given you the permission to share the screen.
Sure. Yeah. Hope you are all able to see my screen. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. Great. Okay. So do let me know if I'm audible and if the PPT is visible. At any point, if you can't hear me, just give me feedback because most of the videos are off. So I think some feedback through chat, and when I'm screening, I may not be able to see the chat. So it is therefore important for you to give me the feedback. I think the feedback is already coming, and it says, yeah, okay. I think it is for the previous one. Great. So I think I was so fortunate to hear some of the parting thoughts of the previous speaker, and very, very inspiring, Pen, and I can imagine all of you have enjoyed the presentation too. I want to congratulate all of you to sit through all of these sessions for so long. I don't know since how long have you been attending to these sessions, and appreciate your patience. I think 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock, I think it started, right?
12:30.
Yeah, yeah. So I think all learning research shows that people can't sit at one place and attend more than 20 to 25 minutes. So I think all of your names should be in Guinness Book of World Records for sitting here for this long. And I'm going to add to the list, but I'll try to keep it as brief. And I think if it can be followed through, I'll be happy. So I'll tell you what is the outline of the presentation that I have planned today. And the topic that was given to me is to talk about iCall, a service that I run at Tata Institute of Social Sciences. But I thought that it's a great opportunity to interact with people and to introduce them to these issues. First of all, I'm just going to create a bit of a background about young people's mental health, and particularly during COVID. What is it that young people are telling us through our helpline? And ours is a national level helpline. I'll talk about it in some time. But essentially, I'm also going to talk about the issue of suicide. And we have seen almost a 300% rise in the number of people who are calling us or reaching out with suicide ideation. So definitely I'm going to talk about suicide among youth and what are the realities. And I'm going to most importantly take an opportunity to talk to all of you about how can you take care of yourself and how can you help others also take care of their lives. So I'll try to keep my presentation, as I mentioned, as brief as possible and as practically usable as possible, right? So just a quick look at young people's mental health in India, and it includes all of you also. So to begin with, I think I want to make clear that I don't believe that young people are a homogeneous kind of group. I know that there are different kinds of gender, sexualities, class, geographies, abilities. And young people in India are a very, very strange mixture, still abiding by some traditional values of collectivistic culture and at the same time pressing elevator buttons and looking at gadgets and trying to, be absolutely modern youth. And they are struggling between these two narratives. So it's a tough thing to be a youth in India today, for sure. And what is data in terms of class? Essentially, 20% of young people in India at any given point of time are likely to face some kind of a mental distress or mental illness, which is a very, very high number. And overall, in India, if you see, there are 150 million adolescents who use tobacco, and many are using harmful alcohol, substances also. And many are engaging in high-risk behaviors. And this is not a surprise at all, given the lack of any kind of conversations around sexuality in India and around it. And you can see that many so you can see a range of stressors that actually young people in India are going through. And if you see, compared to this huge number, 20% of young people who are facing any kind of distress in India, what are the kind of services we have? You can see that the services are absolutely very, very abysmal. 0.301 psychiatrists per almost a 1 lakh population, even a lesser number of psychologists. And particularly, most of the services that are available in India are highly biomedical, highly therapeutic. They are not necessarily youth friendly. Right? And young people require very different kinds of therapeutic or support services. Yeah. So this is the background of what mental health condition of young people is in India and what kind of services are available actually in the country. Now let's talk about what is happening to young people during COVID. you can see that young people are going through several stressors. And I thought that it's very important to bring the context of COVID in today's talk. You can see that there are a number of stressors that young people are facing. There is illness, obviously, starting with COVID and anxiety of contracting COVID, or others, loved ones contracting COVID, or the other extreme of not caring about COVID at all, because everybody is sick and tired of that also. There are young people who might have lost their homes, who might be facing a lot of uncertainty about future because of school or colleges closing or disruption of schedule. I am teaching every day online, and I wonder about connectivity issues. Many students are working from home. There are families around them. There are perhaps a lot of conflicts. Some of you may be facing even abuse and violence. Even if you want to seek support, if you want to go out, given the mobility restrictions, even visiting a health facility today creates such a huge anxiety amongst all of us. So we are facing so many conflicts, and many young people are telling us that there are huge increases in the number of arguments that are there within the family, or also with peers and their romantic relationships. So globally, this is a very, very important survey which was done by ILO. And what is it saying? Globally, young people, particularly amongst young people, also young women, younger people, and those from low income countries are facing more problems than other young people. All of these problems that I've talked about, uncertainty about future, school or college closures, or people who are working are worried about losing their jobs, economic crisis, and many are facing mental health difficulties. If you look at some of the studies from India also, you will find similar kinds of studies where even Indian youth are reporting, and these are large scale studies. Indian youth also is reporting anxiety and depression and several kinds of other worries. I want to take this opportunity to talk about certain further vulnerable groups of young people in India who may not get a chance to talk about their distress. One is people who are maybe facing abuse or violence. Many young people are calling us and telling us that they are unfortunately stranded today with the same people who are perpetrating abuse, or who are kind of, perpetrating violence without having any opportunity to escape also. So that's a huge trigger, or without any opportunity to go out and seek support, which they could have probably done traditionally, right? There are people from queer communities also, young people who do not identify themselves as straight, or who identify themselves as gender queer or sexual queer, are finding it very suffocating to stay within the family. Some of them are not yet out, and some of them who were out could access support systems from outside and are not able to do that, and therefore they have to be silent, or families of dismissive of their identities. So that's also one of the marginalized groups very clearly. There are many young people who had some kind of a mental health problem prior to COVID, and during COVID, they experienced some sort of exacerbation of their symptoms, and they are also calling us. And initially, especially due to the lockdown, if they could access therapist by going out and visiting the therapist, unfortunately, till the time the therapist, psychiatrist shifted to an online medium, there was a dearth of services. People couldn't get their prescriptions. So young people with mental illness prior to COVID is another kind of a vulnerable group. So this is what data from India is telling us, that overall there is a distress, but distress is very, very high among certain kinds of young people. Families are finding it very tough to stay with adolescents and young people. They are not used to. They are used to young people going out for colleges, meeting friends, and everybody is stranded. Young people are fed up of family members and are saying that they are breathing down our neck. They're telling us how much gadget usage they are monitoring our gadget. Who are we talking to? Why are you behaving like this? Why aren't you helping? So several triggers for conflicts. So I just want to say that this is a very, very difficult time. Overall, being young in India is not the easiest thing. And many of the stressors that particularly young people report in India are not necessarily mental health stressors, but those are psychosocial stressors. They are within their relationships, maybe their class, the resources that are available, the fights, and not so much in the mental illness or the mental health alone. One of the biggest or the severest manifestations of distress that young people are facing is definitely suicide. Yeah. And I just wanted to clarify these three terms, which are used sometimes very interchangeably. And I don't know whether the previous speakers have done that. If they have done that, pardon me for repeating the same, but I thought, let me take this opportunity to talk about it. The first term is suicide. Obviously, all of us currently, whatever the news items, are also talking about it. Suicide is death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with an intent to die, with an intent to finish one's life. Yeah, and we will look at some of the numbers of suicide in young people in India particularly. But I want to talk about two more things for which also young people are calling, I call today. Another one is suicidal. So I actually want to end my life, and I begin to do that. It may or may not cause injury, and it may or may not end up in actually finishing my life. But the intent is there that at least let me attempt. Yeah, there's another related word called death wish. Yeah, many young people tell us that I want to sleep at night and I wish I don't get up next day, is also a sign of what the previous speaker was talking about, hopelessness, helplessness. So that is also another term we need to keep in mind. And another very important phenomenon which is least talked about is self-harm. Yeah, there are huge number of young people who are in some kind of a distress, pain, and essentially to relieve this pain, to communicate their distress, they may engage in some kind of self-harm. This could be banging your head, this could be cutting your wrist, this could be not eating, starving yourself, several kinds of acts of harming oneself without an intent to finish my life. But the purpose is to release my pain, to communicate my pain, to maybe cry for help also. And if any one of you is experiencing any of this, or any one of your loved ones is experiencing any one of this, I think we need to take some steps in order to help them or help yourself also. And I have got a bouquet of some steps that we can start using in our lives also. The previous speaker has already very beautifully through prevention acronym have told us what those steps could be, and I have a few more to offer. If you see the number of young people who are actually, suicide is one of the leading cause of death amongst young people. And it's very important to look at the gender differences. Girls, females actually attempt much more than men, and men end up their lives much more than women in India. If you look at the reasons for girls or women to attempt suicide, it is largely related to their relational lives, conflicts in family, gender-based violence, child sexual abuse, discrimination. But if you look at men's reasons, you will typically find that it is surrounding around performance. Because of the way masculinity is constructed, boys are taught to be tough and competitive and very autonomous and self-reliant and always be in charge and control. So when boys find it difficult to perform in their academics or in their careers, it's a blow to their masculinity or their self-worth, and this is one of the top leading causes for why men or boys may engage in self-harm or suicide. Means also, girls may use more less harmful means, such as having pesticides or whatever is available within their immediate environments, whereas boys use much lethal means. And therefore it is important that we do something quickly, given this severity, given these huge numbers in India. We thought, and given the huge numbers of mental distress, and particularly even in COVID, we at TISS thought that we need to start a service which is at a call's distance, so that young people can take charge of their own lives. And therefore today, now I'm going to talk to you just quickly about iCall, and we can take more questions also. But I'm also going to talk about some of the steps you can take charge of your own lives also. So iCall, and the number is here. I will also put it in chat as soon as our conversation is over. But iCall is a national level technology assisted psychosocial counseling service. We started in 2012. And if you look at the number of people who are in need of services versus the services available, you can see a huge treatment gap. We were thinking that we wish to reach out to that last person in the community who is in need of service in some remote part of India, but who may not access services because one doesn't have money or distance or stigma, several other problems. So what's the way to reach that last person? And we thought technology can provide us some solutions. And therefore, iCall actually was conceptualized in September 2012. We finished 8 years just a few days back. It's we offer services in 3 modalities. You can call us, you can email us, and you can definitely chat with us also. Currently, this is our number, and you can also check our website. We basically operate from Monday to Saturday between 10 to 8 p.m. And iCall essentially is provides services in 10 different languages, so you don't have to worry about speaking only English or Marathi or Hindi. And these services are free of cost, but they are run by professional counselors who have a minimum master's degree in clinical or counseling psychology, and they have to undergo rigorous training before they can handle their first call or email or chat also. You don't have to tell us who you are. These are some of the concerns for which young people call us, and you can see it's a range of concerns for which people call us. We are not just a suicide prevention helpline. We provide services to individuals across lifespan to anyone who is in distress, but young people are our largest demographic. And you can see that some of the issues mentioned here are issues that you may not find comfortable talking to your friends or talking to your teachers or family members or even your partners. For example, sexuality concerns, or maybe suicide, or maybe abuse, or maybe violence. Definitely, you can talk to us. These are some of the features of our services. We are a very diversity-friendly service. Many people from disability community, gender, queer, or even other marginalized community call us, and you don't have to tell us who you are, what your name is. It's a completely confidential service, and it's not just an emotional first aid service. You can continue to call us as long as you want. 50% of our callers are repeat callers, and we try to provide the same therapeutic experience that you will have in a face-to-face session only through a phone call, right? You can talk as long as you want. The session doesn't have to be for 5 minutes or 40 minutes. If you feel like talking to us for 2 hours, you can definitely do that, right? And we ensure that you don't have to repeat your story, so that there is a continuity of care that is offered to you, right? All our counselors also receive a ongoing supervision apart from providing emotional support, psychotherapeutic services. If you require some ground level services also, if you require referrals, maybe to women's organization, to legal aid services, definitely we will make sure that iCall will give you those referrals also. I'm going to flash iCall's number again as soon as I am done with the presentation. Yeah. So let me take this opportunity to also talk about, while you can definitely call us, what are some of the things that you can do in order to take care of yourself during these COVID times, right? And let me tell you that our helplines are buzzing right now, and we are not able to even accommodate the whole call flow that is coming our way, because people are in utmost distress and unfortunately the traditional means of coping and support systems. So many people are telling us that earlier I would have gone out, watched a movie, just taken a stroll. If I would have had a fight, I would have gone to my friend's place, or I would have just chatted or just done some window shopping. Now many of these coping mechanisms which are externally driven are not available to us, which means I think we need to develop a self-care toolkit which is perhaps based on what is immediately available to us given these mobility restrictions. And I have kept that exactly in mind by preparing this self-care toolkit. Now everything may not apply to all of you, but whatever applies to whoever can pick it up. And these are reminders. Maybe you are already doing it, but this is just a kind of a checklist that are you doing this? Yeah. So simple things, I think you must be bored to hear this, but are you eating regularly? Are you eating healthily and mindfully? Because a lot of us finish our lunches and meals within 5 minutes. And, if somebody asks, so what did you eat? We don't even remember what have we eaten because we are sitting in front of some kind of a screen. Many young people are calling us and telling us, I'm binge watching. I'm just watching one after the other serial and 10 hours are gone. I started in the morning, I look out and it's evening. I don't know how to get out of it. So I think being mindful, being in the present is extremely important. The rest of the things are, I'm hoping you are doing something, but in a day, at least for 10 minutes, are you connecting to your body? Are you doing something to nourish or nurture your body? Doing something like simple dancing or taking a walk in whatever limited space that is available, or playing some sport, again, given the space restrictions, wearing clothes that you like. A lot of people are wearing the same clothes when they are sitting in front of teachers for colleges also. While it is convenient and why not? I mean, right now you all have your camera switched off, so you don't have to bother. But your body also needs a signal of routines. Doing simple things like changing clothes as if you are going to the college also is important for nurturing your body. So hopefully you're doing something to take time off to nurture your body. The previous speaker was talking about a concept called psychic interactionism, that your thoughts, emotions, and your behaviors are connected. I want to add a fourth dimension, which is that of body. Mind is made of four things: your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, and your body. Are you in your toolkit taking care of these four things? Do you have at least one strategy for one of these components is something that you need to look at. Making your emotional and psychological self-care toolkit is also very important. Making your personal life a priority. A lot of people, but I want to give a balance also. Some people are so then self-indulgent that they don't think about others. So I would say a balance of self-care and help care. Self-care and other care. I think that is important, and not being just self-indulgent or focusing on others. I think it will serve a huge sort of a way to all of us. So making personal life a priority. The earlier speaker was talking to you of being mindful of your emotions, being self-aware. You need to slow down maybe once a day to ask yourself, well, how was my day? What did I do? What did I feel? Who did I talk to? Even just doing a quick check helps you bring in the present. Yeah. Finding a meaning and connection. A lot of young people are telling us, saying that I'm going through the motions of life, but I don't feel connected. I don't feel that I'm able to enjoy life. So doing something which is meaningful at least once a week, or if possible once a day, and it doesn't have to be huge, profound meaning. It's something like, I listened to this beautiful song today and it was meaningful for me, good enough. But staying connected to, I don't know whether you've heard about this logotherapy, existentialist psychotherapist called Viktor Frankl, who talked about a big M, which is a larger meaning of life, and a small m, which is an everyday meaning that you create for yourself. So start with small m's is a good idea. Some other practices is time for self-reflection. If you are a great fan of journaling, please do that. I think it's a fantastic idea. Therapy is a great idea, and I call if you feel like, if it can be of any help to you. Read things which are unrelated to psychology or whatever stream of studying you are currently into. At least one small blog or something apart from social media. Social media doesn't count as necessarily reading. And practice affirmations. And I have a few here, yeah, just to show you. Something simple as I accept myself as I am. I'm enough. I'm worthy of love and compassion. Or I'm allowed to make mistakes, but I have to learn from those mistakes also. It's healthy to relax or have fun. Whatever suits you, you need to develop those affirmations. It's a great idea to paste them on your mirrors or inside your cupboards, wherever you can see them as you come and go inside your room. But something positive, something sort of, confidence boosting, something relaxing, something self-compassionate might be very, very, very helpful. Yeah. Identify people in your life who give you comfort and support, and make at least one phone call, maybe in 2 days, 3 days. Make a checklist for yourself. I want to talk to you about this brilliant technique called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a simple grounding technique. When our minds are flooded with anxiety, our brain, this is our brain, and this is how our brain looks like. The front part is the thinking brain, and the inside part is the emotional brain. When all of us are extremely anxious, the connection between the thinking brain and the emotional brain actually gets disrupted. The brain flips like this, which means your thinking hats are actually not connected with your emotional brain. Only emotional brain is operating, and it will do anything. It will fight with the adversity, it will fly, run away, it will freeze. You don't know what you are doing. You will procrastinate. You will not work, or it may perhaps, feel more anxious or whatever it is. In order to have our thinking brain, problem solving, calm, all of that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique is extremely helpful. There are several grounding exercises. I can share them with you. I wish I could have demonstrated it, but given the time difficulty, if the time permits, we can demonstrate. But essentially, you just have to sit at one place and take 3 nice deep breaths through your nose, and exhale through your mouth. And then close your eyes and 3 breaths, and then open your eyes and tell yourself the 5 things that you can see around you, 4 things that you can touch. And how is the touch? Describe yourself. 3 things that you can hear. Describe. 2 things that you can smell. Tell yourself, what is the smell like? And the last thing is, what you can taste. Maybe food, maybe if you haven't eaten anything, think of what you have eaten and what it tastes like. It immediately brings calm into your anxious systems, and it helps the thinking brain slowly connect back to your emotional brain, so that you are in control of your anxiety. There are several simple grounding techniques, and we are recommending it to everybody with whom we are having this webinar to engage in these simple self-care techniques. Choose your consumption by food also. We all know all young people are coping to either eating too less or too much. And another consumption is your gadgets. I feel that all of you know what needs to be done. So I don't want to sound very ageist and repeat what your parents are telling you, but at least start simple things. One of the things that I tell my clients is, if you are so tempted to keep looking at it, at least for half an hour, keep inside the cupboard or keep on the top of the shelf, so that at least accessing your phone becomes that much difficult. At least half an hour before you sleep, switch it off. Will make a hell lot of a difference to your life. And one of the last things that I want to talk about is practice gratitude. We are all complaining how life is unfair, and it is unfair. Nobody is debating that. I validate each one who is saying that. It is unfair. It is unfair to everybody, and maybe it is unfair to some of you even more than others. But there must be some sliver of hope, some goodness in your life also. And all positive psychology tells us that practicing gratitude helps us shift our focus on from negative thinking to positive thinking. And here is what you can do. Some of the questions I have written here: what makes me happy, or what made me happy throughout the day? If not today, yesterday. If not yesterday, day before. What am I grateful for? Whom am I checking in on or connecting with today, so that I can feel better and they can feel better? What expectations of normal I have to let go of? I'm trying to control reality, but it's not controllable. So what can I let go of? And what am I creating, cultivating? Am I doing something new? I'm sure using some of these techniques, and there are many more. If you are interested, I can send you definitely handouts after the session. Hopefully you move from fear zone that the COVID is keeping us stuck into, to a learning zone. Okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but is there some learning for me from this? And then eventually aspiring from learning zone to move into a growth zone also, where then I can actually turn adversity into an opportunity, which is also known as post-traumatic growth. So are you interested in this post-traumatic growth? And then what is your toolkit and what is it that you are planning to do? The last thing that I want to take opportunity to talk about is, while you focus on self-care, I hope you are focusing on helping others also. Some of you may not help others, thinking, especially people who are feeling extreme amounts of distress, including suicide. You may think that, what if I'm wrong? What if I plant the idea of suicide or distress in their head? What if they say, no, I'm not thinking, why are you asking such odd questions? Or what if I say something wrong and increase their distress? You may be scared, whereas the other person is thinking, I don't know how to explain. I don't know if the other person is interested in my life. I don't want to be a burden to somebody. So that person may be silencing oneself. Therefore, it is extremely important for you to reach out to others. I think the earlier speaker has talked about what needs to be done. And I think I have a list too, that be there. Don't be there to provide solutions. People hate it. Believe that people have solutions. They want validation. They just want a sounding board. So you can help them be all of that. And don't do what is written in the right hand side. Don't preach, don't induce guilt. If you die, what will happen to your parents? The person will think, here, you are not worried about me, you're worried about my parents. And one of the things that please don't do is, don't make their story about your story, right? I've heard a lot of people's conversations that if they start narrating, the other person will say, अरे तुम्हारा तो कुछ ही भी नहीं, मेरा तो और भी आप सुनो. And the person then loses interest that I came here to share my story. So I think the mantra that I'm talking about is balance the self-care with help care, focusing on self and focusing on others. I think that's the key to a balanced and healthy and holistic life. And prepare your own self-care toolkit. If any one of you is feeling any kind of a distress due to COVID, here is our dedicated COVID helpline, which we have launched since the month of April. Again, it's a national level helpline. I can send these posters. This is a crisis line. So it's a brief call. And the number is 9152987820. I'll repeat, 9152987820. And if you're interested in talking in detail and perhaps, again and again on an ongoing basis, you can call us on this number, which is I call regular helpline. And the number is 9152987821, right? You can visit us on our website. So I think I'll end my presentation here. I hope I have not exceeded the time limit which was given to me. And this is my email ID. In case any one of you wish to connect to me, if you wish to volunteer with iCall also, you can write to us. We would be more than happy to, connect to some of you. And we've had pleasant experiences of young people working with iCall, and they bring a fantastic energy, just as this group has. So would be happy to receive any questions, comments, your reflections, and I'll stop talking.
Thank you so much, Aparna ma'am. I think there is a question that has come on YouTube. It's like, it says that if a person gets in touch with iCall and is suicidal and does not continue his call, what happens then?
Yeah. So if a person comes in touch with iCall, um, as long as the person is in touch with us, iCall will try its level best to ensure that the person, despite thinking suicide as a viable option, we will do everything to discourage the person in a very, very empathetic manner and also provide necessary support. But at the same time, we don't follow up in cases of suicide. Initially, however, if a person is we have a suicidal risk assessment procedure. If we find that the person is at a very high risk, then definitely we ensure that we get into a pact or a consent kind of a conversation with that person, that we will send messages and follow up with that person. We take a safe number, we take number of somebody else also with the person's consent, not at all without the person's consent, but because our priority is safety. Now, despite all of these attempts, if somebody still goes ahead and finishes one's life, it's very difficult for us to know unless somebody from that person's life writes to us. And it has happened in the past that people have told us that such and such untowardly incident happened. But otherwise, this is what we try to do. Unless the person is safe, we may be with that person on the call for 5 hours, 10 hours, but we will ensure that the person is safe. That is our commitment to people's lives and well-being.
There is a question, Aparna ma'am. Thank you for the earlier one. How do you suggest a counselor should manage if the person says, I'm happy with the life I have lived, but there is no goal left, thus I want to end my life?
Right. And this is exactly a very similar kind of a narrative that we hear on iCall also, when people call us with issues of suicide, that I'm happy or maybe I'm unhappy, but I don't see the point in living, right? We always believe that if this person, despite this hopelessness, felt that maybe this is my last chance, maybe let me still try talk to this counselor or to this helpline. To us, that's a small window that a person is providing for us to get into. As a counselor, never tell a person that this is not how you should be thinking about or how bad suicide is an option, as if the person hasn't thought about it. Everybody knows that. So you just need to say that from where you are, I can see that life is hopeless, and therefore maybe suicide feels like a viable option in your life. At the same time, is it okay if we continue to talk about it? And you need to then conduct a systematic assessment also of the severity of suicide, the possibility of this person actually attempting one, and the triggers and the coping mechanisms and the resources that are available. The first thing that you need to do is create a safety plan with this person, connect the person to somebody from life. Therefore, we can stay for 5 hours also on the helpline until we help find another connecting person. And the last thing I would like to say is telling this person that his or her or whatever gender they believe in, their life matters to us for sure. So while we continue to hold this as an option, can we explore some other hopeful options? The last thing that you should avoid doing is guilt tripping, telling people to think about this one, that one, and cheerleader. You can't be a cheerleader. Clients are also testing how much of pain can counselors withstand. If you are scared of pain, then you need a lot of training to entertain or to work with issues of suicide. Therefore, our counselors undergo a rigorous training before you can actually handle issues of suicide and such, or any issue of pain for that.
Thank you so much, Aparna ma'am. I see a couple of more questions coming in, but I think we can forward the questions to, I can forward the questions to Aparna ma'am. Many of them have asked for the poster with both the crisis number and the I-call number. And so students and participants, I can forward that to you so that, even man's slides, so that in case you need, especially the numbers, you can help out. And I personally definitely can vouch for the iCall, and it's very effective. So anyone in your family you need to reach out, please use the services of iCall. So once again, thank you so much, Aparna ma'am. This was a very insightful talk. Over to you, Bhavi, to give your vote of thanks to ma'am.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. So words fall short to express my gratitude towards Aparna Joshi, ma'am. It has always been a pleasure to attend a session given by you. We hold you in high regard, whether it is for this amazing session on suicide prevention, learning about self-care, for the wonderful affirmations you taught us today, for the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, or for your contribution towards iCall, which has become very accessible and aiding helpline for many. The pandemic and the lockdown has posed serious implications and has immobilized many who are actively seeking therapy and has brought about a hindrance in their mental health journey. iCall is especially appreciated at such times. Anybody who is unaware about iCall would have found this information very beneficial. We will be sure to share this with our loved ones and with the people who might need with this, as it not only deals with suicide-related issues, but also a wide array of mental health issues. I would like to thank you once again for being a part of for this wonderful cause and for sharing the information about it with us. And without further ado, I now request Rudra Galvankar to introduce you all to our last speaker of the day.
Thank you, Bhavi, for a wonderful summarization and an excellent, precise, commentary. Thank you so much and wish you all the best. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Aparna ma'am. Thank you, Bhavi. Over to you, Rudra, and to introduce our next speaker, the very well-known, the very soft-hearted, beautiful. My son is waiting to see you. He walks the ramp with you, Shruti ma'am. And when I told him you're going to be there on the screen, he went and wore his jeans. So he's like, I must look nice. So I was like, sure. So over to you, Rudra, to introduce. So everyone, here we have with us Shruti Panwar ma'am. Yes, Rudra.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing is more inspirational than being in a battle with your own mind and having won over it. Without further ado, I would like to invite our next guest, Ms. Shruti Panwar, who is an Indian film and television actress. She has appeared in several Bollywood films like Raz, Dil To Pagal Hai, Mr. X, Etbar, and Ye Hai Mumbai Meri Jaan, and also in famous TV serials like Thoda Hai, Thode Ki Zarurat Hai, Dil Hai Ki Manta Nahi, Sasural Genda Phool, Jamai Raja, Dasta-e-Mohabbat, and Salim Anarkali. She has also hosted shows like Stree Shakti for DD National and Chalti Ka Naam Antakshari for Star Plus. Apart from having 175 TV commercials under her, she even plays BCL, the TV Celebrity Cricket League, where she has won 3 times out of 4. Not only is she an extremely talented person, but also a gem of a person. Shruti walked the ramp with our special children during Psychomagicum last academic year. She's always contributing towards social causes and setting the right example for our youth. Ma'am, the platform is all yours to take over.
Okay. Thank you, Rudra. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I can't see anybody because so I'm like, why can't I see anyone? Okay, now I can see you, Rudra. Yes, thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Okay. Yeah. You can't hear me?
We can hear you.
We can.
Okay, hello, Dr. Varsha. How are you doing? Dr. Meghna, how are you?
I'm good, ma'am. Thank you. Nice seeing you again.
Yes, nice seeing you again also. Where is your son?
He was just waving at you, ma'am. He was just waving at you. I'll call him.
Him.
Sure. I just he was waiting for your session and he was like, I walked the ramp, he's still feeling shy. Away.
Yes, I remember. How are you doing?
I'm fine. He's fine.
Aww,
He's
he's
still shy.
shy.
He's shy.
Yeah, that's
But
okay.
thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time out of your busy schedule. It really means
No,
a
I'm
lot.
not busy. No, I'm not busy. Who's busy now during lockdown? Especially not the artists. Of course, you all are busy because I guess you guys are taking online classes and so on. But I'm
Sure,
not
ma'am.
really, really busy. Yeah, something or the other keeps on coming up, so I keep on doing it. But otherwise, yeah, it's a very home time for me right now.
Lovely, lovely.
Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So the dice is all yours, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. Yes. Hello.
We can hear you, ma'am.
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes. So I know the kind of situations we all are going through nowadays. With the pandemic, with so many issues coming in everybody's lives, it is a difficult matter for all of us. But it's also, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor. I'm a mere artist. But then, of course, psychologically, even us artists, we also suffer a lot, especially when you don't have work, when things are not going the right way, and everything is not smooth, your journey is not smooth sailing, there are a lot of hurdles in your life. So definitely emotionally, psychologically, one gets a bit of squashed and squeezed and so on. But the whole thing is that I think it is up to you how you take the hurdles, the obstacles, the pressure, the stress which comes your way in the right way, and deal with it, tackle with it in whatever ways you can. I know it is very easy to say it than to do it and than to practice it, but then at least I always believe that one should always make an effort. And I am generally a very happy person, a positive, optimistic person. So I take everything in my stride, and in my zing thing, and in my whole aura, and I take that energy, whether it is good or bad, receive it, accept it, see it with my own perspective, objectively, subjectively, and then deal with it accordingly. So this is how I have been in my life. So yeah, it is difficult for some of us to deal with a lot of issues which we go through, and emotionally, mentally, physically, psychologically, now all the more so because of the pandemic and the COVID. So yeah, that's about it. That's from me. You tell me what to say. I can't see anybody. Like, oh, now I can see you.
Yeah. Ma'am, there is a question from an audience, and what they want to know is.
Could you hear me?
Yes,
Could you hear me what I
absolutely,
said? Okay,
absolutely.
super.
Ma'am, so there is a question from the audience, from one of the participants, stating that you being a celebrity, आप लोग को हमेशा टीवी पे सुंदर दिखना है, fit दिखना है, happy दिखना है. So
Yes.
they were like that, you have your ups and downs. How do you manage to be so positive or so fresh on screen? आप लोग उसको कैसे छुपाते हो? How do you handle it?
Yes, I mean, whatever goes with you as an artist, especially when you're in front of the camera, you have to look good, you have to look fresh, like you said, and you have to be always up and about, always shining, always risen, always energetic. So a lot of situations which come even my way when things are not going right, when probably I've had a bad day, or maybe things are not smooth enough, or maybe I'm carrying some baggage of emotion with me, and I go with that baggage of emotion to my shoot. But the whole thing is that I cannot let that baggage bog me down, even if I have it. Because see, आपके साथ जो बीतता है या आपके साथ जो अनुभव आप करते हो, उसको आप एकदम नकार तो नहीं सकते. You can't just remove it out of your life or throw it out of your life. It is very difficult. You have to really, really, really work hard to throw it out of your life. But yes, the baggage which you carry of a lot of emotions, a lot of stress, a lot of disturbances in your life, if there are, then you have to just keep them aside, and you have to tell yourself that as an artist, you are there to do your job, which is to perform right, which is not to get your baggage be a hindrance or an obstacle in your work. And of course, psychologically also, you've got to treat yourself. You have to treat yourself. See, so, you're your own psychologist, basically, your own counselor, basically. So all these things you have to, tackle with. And as far I am concerned, I am generally a very, very positive person. I am a happy-go-lucky soul. So, I'm like, जो होता है वो अच्छे के लिए होता है, जो नहीं होता है वो और भी अच्छे के लिए होता है. ऐसे बड़े लोग कहते हैं हमेशा. And I think it is really, really true because, I don't like right now, I am not working. I have no work right now because my show finished in January. And then I went to do one film called Suryavanshi. And then I went to do another film in an outdoor to Haryana to do another film for a month. So just before lockdown, we came back because we came to know that the lockdown is happening. And so I don't have any work. But then I, as a person, I did not let myself, kind of dig myself into the ground and feel horrible about that. I do not have work. What am I going to do? When will the shoot start? I know everybody has problems. Monetary issues are there. Everything is there. But it's just that, ठीक है, दो रोटी नहीं खाएंगे, एक रोटी खा लेंगे, लेकिन खुश होके तो जिए. Because अगर वो खुशी आपके अंदर नहीं रहेगी, if you're not happy from inside, that satisfaction is not there from inside, तो वो सारा जो stress है, that's going to eat you up. So it is up to you how you take it. So I did not let that thing bog down. In fact, I just said, okay, this whole energy which is going around all of us, not just in my house or around my area or around Mumbai, Maharashtra, India, but around the whole globe. The whole globe together is suffering from this situation right now. And I think for once the whole world was one,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Shruti, ma'am. Ma'am, there's another question where where one participant has asked that, do you feel that staying fit physically has a strong impact on being mentally fit? Or do you think both are different concepts?
Absolutely. No, they are absolutely not different. It's like hand in glove, they go together, they complement each other, they're walking parallel with each other together, they're holding hands and walking with each other almost, I feel. Because I know it, I'm a very fitness conscious person, I'm a fitness freak, I'm crazy, absolutely. If you go to my Instagram, you'll just see my posts about my fitness usually. So every day I work out. Like religiously I work out. जैसे लोग प्रार्थना करते हैं ना, तो ऐसे मैं वर्कआउट करती हूँ अपना. और मैंने नीचे एक गराज है, उसको जिम बना लिया है, थोड़े से डंबल्स खरीद लिए. So that is what I'm saying. I transformed this whole negative energy into a positive energy, and I said, no, in this time I've got to take care of myself and my family. And if I have to take care of my loved ones, I have to be fit. I have to be shining. I have to be happy. I have to be strong, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And I transformed that. I started working out again. I always was a fitness freak, but all the more now I've started working out again. And I see a very positive change in me, which has helped me, even mentally. And of course, abhi to sab immunity ki baat kar rahe hain. So please stay fit. Increase your immunity, be strong, that is what is needed right now.
Ma'am, one last question, Shruti ma'am. A participant has asked that what does Shruti Panwar ma'am do one thing wrong when she's upset?
I eat a lot. I'm a stress eater. Trust me, लोगों की भूख मर जाती है, मेरी भूख खुल जाती है. I love to eat when I'm stressed. Of course, we do not know how stress comes and when it goes away. But then I figure it out when I really want to eat, mithai and cakes, and I want to have this aerated drinks ki jo craving hoti hai, all that. Though I am not a very diet kind of a person, I eat everything, ghar ka khana, in the right way, at the right time, in the right amount. That is what my funda is. These diets and all is nonsense, according to me. It may work for you all fine, but then for me, it's a no because it just jeopardizes with your whole system from inside. So you got to eat अच्छा खाना, घर का खाना, सेहतमंद खाना. अब ये इसका मतलब ये नहीं खूब सारा खा लो. अब दाल चावल खा रहे हो तो मतलब नहीं खूब सारा खा लो. You have to eat the right amount. इतना खाओ कि भाई एक रोटी की भूख और बची है. इतना खाना चाहिए, and that's about it. So yes, I am a big stress eater. I come to know when I have these cravings that okay, now the stress is there in me, but I don't know for what. But yeah, it is there. So that is what I do wrong.
Ma'am, there's a girl, I think one of the participants, she's a dancer.
Yes.
So she wants
Oh,
to
lovely.
ask you that, do you feel that sometimes when you're in pain, then it is right to channelize your pain through an art, an expressive
It
art?
is. Yes, that's beautiful. In fact, expressive art, which you do, you dance, I act, and I love to sing as well, and I love to color as well. So these are, and I love to cook as well. That's also an art, where you kind of express yourselves with the hands, with the heart, you cook. And all your energies go into the food, and that food is eaten by your loved ones and your family or your friends, and they get that beautiful energy. So yes, the pain, the stress, for me cooking is like meditation, and the fitness for me, working out is like my time, my space time, and for me to be in my own little world. So yeah, these two things are something which I also express through a form of a different art. So yeah, your the active art which you do, like dance, is fantastic to kind of, and I'm sure you must be doing that.
Thank you, Shruti ma'am. I think those were the questions from the participants, but it is always an honor to have you amongst us and share your experiences, your ideas. And I personally feel the positive vibe that you have, even when you were around physically. And it's always nice to have you. And, the first person we thought when we said, let's end the day with some positive ideas. Of course, all the speakers have given us, and I said our participants would love to see you live. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation, ma'am.
No, thank you so much. Thanks to Rita. Thanks to you. Thanks to Ashia, who's been in conversation with me. And I just want to say a few things to everybody, because I feel it is, because I also get inspired by people, and I also feel that maybe I inspire people, in whatever little way I can. So yeah, just these are tough times for all of us, but maybe it's like a lesson for us that we are hampering with ourselves and with our surroundings, be it nature, be it family, be it relationships, be it the way we see ourselves and we see around us. So let's kind of reflect, look into the mirror, talk to yourself, see who you are, see what you want really in life, and let's move forward with a lot of positivity, with a lot of happiness, with a lot of smiles. कोई बात नहीं, कमी है, हम सब के अंदर कमी है. We all have faults. Nobody is perfect, but let's find, एक ordinary में extraordinary ढूंढने का प्रयास करते हैं. Find possibilities in problems. So these are a few things we should do. Celebrate life every day. Live each day, each moment to the fullest, because we do not know what is coming next. We did not know that we would be in a lockdown for 5 months. So yes, just be happy, celebrate yourself, and yes, love yourself. Very, very essential. You will not be a self-centered person. You will not be selfish. You will not be just me, but you have to. It is very essential to love yourself. You love yourself, you see yourself flowering, and henceforth you will, help others to flower and be happy and be loved.
Thank you, Shruti ma'am. That was beautiful. I think all of you have a beautiful message from Shruti ma'am, to take home. And this is a lovely ending to our session. So over to you, Rudra.
Thank you. Thank you, Meghna ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Meghna. I'll see you soon someday, physically.
Absolutely. Sure, ma'am. Over to you, Rudra, to offer the...
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I really think everyone needs this kind of optimism and positivity you have in every aspect of our life. Thank you to you, ma'am, for also taking us on the other side of the glamour industry through your insights. A lot of young people idealize the glamour industry but fail to understand beyond the surface level. It was interesting as well as informative listening to your thoughts and experiences. It was particularly timely as the rates of suicide amongst the youth have increased during the lockdown. I am sure that all the young people present here will definitely be benefited by your insight. We were more than pleased to have you here with us today. Thank you, ma'am. I now request Meghna ma'am to address the audience.
Thank you, Ridhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti ma'am. So,
okay.
Thank you so much for coming.
I can go away?
Yes, ma'am. You can stay with us.
Yes?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless. Nature bless us all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of our webinar today. It has been a long day, and right from 12:30 to approximately 4 o'clock now, we've had, the participants have been constant, both live on the YouTube channel and of course through Zoom. Thank you. I extend a warm welcome to the ex-TY students, some of them who are there, and of course my gratitude to all the TY psychology present batch. You have done an excellent job. I think this was your first experience. You will have many more like this. Thank you also to all the participants. I think by today's sessions, right from Zubin to we've had Aparna ma'am, we've had Asira ma'am, all of them are experts in their field, and they have taken time out of their busy schedule, especially because this week there are a number of webinars. You would be reading in the paper on suicide prevention being on, we just had it on 10th of September, but ICOL is doing a lot of work, and Aparna ma'am is an international speaker. So is Asira ma'am, who is an RDBT trained right from New York, Albert Ellis Institute. Shri Deepak Kumar Mukadam, guys, you need to understand that he's the right man of the Vice Chancellor in the Vice Chancellor Sir's office. He's a nominee to the nominee of the Vice Chancellor, and he agreed to come on board and give you all the reassurance that don't be worried, things will sort out, and we are sorting them out. And of course, University of Mumbai is doing a great job. So we would like to thank all the speakers today for sharing their insight and having this wonderful discussion with the students. A lot of participants have been very participative, asking questions, and hope your questions have been answered well by the speakers. There are some of you who've asked for the iCall number, posters, etc. We will be putting up the feedback link right now. It is there on chat. It will also be put up on the WhatsApp group. You can fill up the feedback form and allow us a day or two to send you the certificates. It is not possible for us to send each and everyone individually the certificates. So the certificates will be put in a PDF file on the WhatsApp group. All that you need to do is download the PDF file, find your certificate. It's beautifully made by team, and you can print out of the print or keep it on records. Now, a special mention to all my present TYBA students and ex-TYBA students. We had today Nandish, Arshia, Supriti, Rudra, Kashish, Mehek, who are very actively a part of today's, co-hosting and hosting today's session. We had Elvin Kotia from last year. We had Bhavi Doshi. We had Rida Manyar. If I'm missing out someone, you can just unmute yourself and tell me if I'm missing out. Thank you so much for making this program successful. This program would not have been possible without the extended help of Professor Dr. Milind Kunkani, sir. So, sir, if you're there, thank you very much from Department of Psychology for allowing us to use your Zoom Connect and for connecting us on live. This program has been recorded on the Department of Psychology YouTube site, and it will be uploaded there so you can have a look. Thank you to all teachers who have come in from different parts of India and world. I've been told by my students that there were 270 registration across the world. So for certificates, please download it from the Google Drive link and you can get a copy for yourself. If there are no questions, we'll end the day today. Thank you very much. I will quickly go through the chat box. So students of TYBA, people have been thanking you. You can read your sessions. Um, there were wonderful webinars, very beautifully organized, conducted. Speakers were great exemplars. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Don't go out too often. And thank you to all the participants, and definitely thank you to all psychology students. You all look beautiful. I'm impressed with all the formal wear, and I understand how it would be difficult, but thank you. Yes?
Ma'am, excellent session. Ma'am, excellent webinar.
Yes,
Superb, superb.
thank you,
Superb, ma'am.
Melissa.
Superb.
Without
Superb.
your assistance, this would
नहीं
not have been
नहीं
possible.
welcome
एकदम
anytime.
smooth से क्या मैं इतना stress थी because I knew it was going live, but I think it was very well done. Thank you.
नहीं
I really
superb, superb,
appreciate your
superb session.
assistance.
Superb, all superb session.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes. Thank
Ashley, you can put off the recording, please. Thank you, sir.
you. Yeah. Thank you.